Hello, everybody, and welcome to Toy Geeks. My name is Jay Glaffelder from Geek Dad Life.
And I'm Dan Larson from Secret Galaxy.
And we're here to dive into your favorite toy lines 1 year at a time. And last week, we talked about 1995's Power of the Force 2, the return of Star Wars to toy shelves. And now we go into the triumphant second year of this great toy line. And joining us for this is probably in 1996 or around there, first started reading some of his content on the early days of the internet. Please give a warm first-time welcome to Jason, aka Toy Otter. Jason, how you doing?
Good. Jay, Dan, nice to see you both.
Nice to have. I'm really pumped to have you here because I just feel like you were so connected into toy culture at this moment. Because last week, Dan and I were talking about just how pivotal Power of the Force 2 was to toy collecting
And Bendham's.
And
yes,
So.
it was, and it's funny to hear you say what I don't know what you said, what a pivotal year 96 was, but 96 actually, it was pivotal in that it did feel like a pivot point, but I wouldn't say it was like a seminal year.
Okay.
For the stuff.
We got to parse the difference between pivotal and seminal.
Well,
I'm going to look at the dictionary real quick.
A lot of transition going on. I think they were starting. So I'm trying to think of how to start this, how to back up.
Well, I guess, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
First off, let's start with who are you as a toy collector?
Yes.
Where did you get it? When did you get into toy collecting? How did that start? When did you transition from being a kid who got toys bought for him versus a person who said, I'm actively growing a collection now?
So I'm going to go way back. So I'm in my mid 50s. So as a kid, I always kind of collected something. I collected sticks. I collected stuffed animals. As a little kid, I had 12-inch G.I. Joes, Adventure Team, which still, to my money, is the best G.I. Joe, Kung Fu Grip, Atomic Man or Bullet Man, and whoever they were.
All those guys.
But was all into that, casual toy player, 7 years old. It's a fun story. So my dad was in the military. We had just moved to Alabama, staying on a military base in Montgomery, Alabama from Texas. Didn't know anybody, had just started hanging out with the kid next door who was my age. And
what was this kid's name, by the way? Do you remember?
His name was Dean.
Isn't it funny how we remember like our childhood friends' names?
Oh, I totally remember. Yeah, all of that. It was during the summer when we moved there, about to go into third grade. And it was part of a duplex. So we were literally on the other side of the wall from each other in this shared kind of house. And his family one day said, hey, do you want to go to the movies? We think we're going to go see The Rescuers. Because The Rescuers, that was like opening weekend for The Rescuers.
Okay.
Nice.
And I was a big Disney fan. And 70s was like the heyday of the matinee. So kids today don't know what it's like when they've got not just the VHS and everything, but the streaming. But the only way you were going to see cartoons and some of these movies and like Disney live action stuff would be to catch like a Saturday matinee. And they might have like a double feature and some cartoons ahead of it. So that was the big thing, for a little kid is to get the steady stream of that kind of stuff. So The Rescuers was like the first new Disney movie in my lifetime. In that I was like 3 when Robin Hood came out.
Okay.
And so it was the beginning of the Disney Renaissance, more or less. And that was a huge transition because it was the last of the 9 old men wrapping this up. And then you had,
it's kind of like the Don Bluth, almost pre-Renaissance era.
That was it. It was Don Bluth and Glenn Keane and these guys who were, coming up.
Yeah.
And that was the big point where those two paths crossed. So I didn't know all that obviously as at 7, but I was super excited. And so we're driving there, we get to the movie theater and his dad says something like, I bet you guys are excited to see Star Wars. And I was like crestfallen because I was so looking forward to the Rescuers. And I had already had a bad experience, like trying to watch some like $8 million movie, whatever they called it, on Saturdays of 2001. Like,
okay, yeah, okay, Stanley.
And as like a 6-year-old. So I was like,
that's a tough one.
This sci-fi stuff is not for me. Like, I'm not having it. So it was Star Wars, and I just remember being so upset internally. I didn't say anything, but I was just like, this sucks.
It was a bait and switch.
It was a total bait and switch.
Dare you?
And
wait, just real quick. Did you ever find out like why? How did this switch happen? Like, why did they tell you one thing and then the dad pull a dad and it'd be like, well, I
thought about it after the fact, and what I think had happened was Dean had told me we're going to go see the Rescuers, but that probably was never the parents' plan.
Okay.
Dean, you
so that's my guess.
Well, luckily we brought Dean on the show.
Yeah. So we get there, and it's Star Wars, and I remember seeing movies before that, but I don't remember the experience of seeing movies. I have the memories of we went to the theater and saw that, but I just, you know what I mean? It's like a bad snapshot. I remember sitting in that theater watching Star Wars, and the generation who saw it in the theater, who didn't know what it was going into it. And this was like August of 77 by the time it made it to Montgomery, Alabama. So this was a slow rollout across the country. So
this is before the era of like box office opening weekend kind of thing. That came later. Yeah.
The word of mouth must have been huge because people were talking to it, but I was very insular. There was no internet, again, I had moved, so I hadn't been talking to my friends. Like I was in the dark about this movie. I had to have known about it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't interested.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Maybe you're going to answer this right now, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But so you're there, you're upset. Like, at what point did the meter go from upset to like, oh my God, this is amazing? Like, when did it switch for you as you're watching Star Wars for the first time?
So there's this moment in the movie where the screen is black and these giant letters
right about that
behind you. Crescendo. That was it. Like,
it didn't take long. Okay.
Start like that. And it just was everything. Like, it was everything. It gave me a lifelong affinity for the desert. Just the opening scenes.
I was not expecting desert to come out of your mouth.
Well, I mean, just everything. Just it just was this immediate. Oh my God!
So unlike Anakin, you actually love the sand.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Anakin doesn't know what the shit he's talking about.
Someday I'm going to Tunisia.
So I would love it. I would love it. At some point, I'll be on the Lawrence of Arabia podcast, and I can talk about all of my experiences with that film. But anyway, it was amazing, and I remember clearly during the trench run, Dean's dad tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, we're all, I'm taking all the kids to the bathroom. Do you have to go to the bathroom?" And I was just like, "What the hell are you talking
Shut the fuck up, Dean's dad."
See what's on the screen?
Jesus.
During the trench run?
Yeah, like, come on, Larry. Anyway, and it literally was, and anyone who knew me knew this. I had a life before that moment, and I had a life after that moment.
So pre-Star Wars, post-Star Wars.
Those were not the same life.
Yeah. Well, your life is the timeline that they use now for the chronology of Star Wars, right? It's like before the BBY, before Battle of Yavin, and
100%. And to the point of a few weeks later, my parents take us to a drive-in. We go see the Rescuers, take Dean. It was a double feature with holy cow, now I can't remember the name of it. That's how bad this is. The Disney movie with the skunk. You know what I'm talking about?
With the skunk? Live action or animated?
The live action movie.
I have no idea.
And it's
Google
crazy.
it while you say the story.
It's crazy because in my 30s, I had this poster on my wall. I used to have like all the Disney live action posters and stuff. And now, No Deposit, No Return.
Okay.
David Niven's in it, and Darren McGavin.
It gave me Bambi because like, yeah, there's a skunk in Bambi.
Yeah, no. So it's the
Huh.
Yeah, it's the kid who was in Red Dawn and Escape from Witch Mountain.
Okay.
Brad, someone, right? You know what I'm talking about?
No, there's just other Disney.
There's this wormhole
VHS.
tree I'm sucking you guys into right now.
It's an episode. I'm sorry. Just real quick. This other Nosy, the Sweetest Skunk in the West, released by Disney, 1972.
I'm a big Disney nerd, and I can tell you I have never heard of that movie.
Okay.
It's on tape.
So the big point being is I fell asleep during The Rescuers. Like,
whoa, okay.
It was no longer of a concern to me because it was not Star Wars. Yeah, and here's the crazy thing. Again, being 1977, going in 1978, there was no merchandise. I was on an Air Force base, so it wasn't like I had access to department stores and everything. And it was a tiny little Air Force base.
Yeah.
You could ride your bike around it and catch tadpoles and do that kind of backwoods Alabama stuff. But I remember one night my dad brought me home a lightsaber, and it was probably the first bootleg toy. I hunted it down at one point.
Nice.
It was a flashlight with a golf club protector on it. And I probably broke it really quick because you can run out at night. And like, it was, I remember it was dark when he got home, and I immediately just like ran out in the street waving this thing. And then probably like next spring, going into the next summer, we were only there a year, and then I came back to Texas. Again, Dean comes over to me, we were playing on the sidewalk or something. He said, "Hey, I just got back from my grandmother, and she bought me this," and it was Luke Skywalker and his land speeder.
Nice.
This is how out of it I am. I was like, they made toys? Like, I'm just baffled by this whole situation.
Well, we've talked about that on the show, but before it's just like you would find out of toy lines from friends, or maybe you would just stumble upon them in a toy shop or something. There wasn't like, sometimes it was just by word of mouth.
Yeah, cross sell on the back.
Yeah.
Completely. And that's the other thing is, it really is frustrating to me how toy companies just did away with cross sell. And I understand some of the reasons behind it. That was such a formative part of the collecting experience as a kid. Because you didn't have books, you didn't have checklists, you didn't have online things. You just had that cross sell on the back to let you know, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking forward to.
Got it. Need it.
Mark X's through them. So then we moved back home, and I remember it had to be 78. Coming home from school one day, and 6 of the first 12 figures were sitting on my bed that my mom found at a department store.
Oh, that's cool. Birthday or anything, or just cause?
No.
Wow, nice.
And it's weird because I don't have a lot of memories of getting big presents for my birthday or Christmas. Like I know I got like the Death Star and the Falcon for big events. And I got the R2-D2 cookie jar, which I still have, ceramic cookie jar. Oh, awesome. That was a Christmas present. But I mainly got like things like clothes and stuff. But they would get me stuff for like, oh, you went to the emergency room, or you went to the doctor or something. Then on the way home, some action figures. So it was always like odd occasions, or mowing lawns, or get an allowance, get one at a time, that kind of stuff. So but yeah, that was it. That was the next however many years I can just mark events in my life with, and this Star Wars thing happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love the idea of you sitting there at school, or excuse me, at at the Rescuers, just being like, "You think this is good? You should see Star Wars."
Oh, yeah, like well, and what's funny is my parents didn't see Star Wars till 79. Till it came back out.
Easy.
And I think that was on like the third time I saw it. Like, it wasn't a big like going to the movies on repeat wasn't a big thing.
No. Well, and I wonder the timeline for myself. I should ask my parents next time. Actually, I'm seeing my parents tomorrow. I'll ask them because I know that I saw it in the theaters, but I was born in 76. So there's absolutely no way I would remember seeing it if I saw it in 77. And there's no way my parents would have been like, let's take this 1-year-old to the movies, go see Star Wars. So it was probably on one of the returns. And I'm guessing it was on one of the returns right before Empire Strikes Back came out. So because I remember seeing Empire.
So that was the return. Like it didn't leave the theaters for a year.
Yeah.
So it stayed in theaters forever because when I got back, like my best friend who was still there, because we moved away for a year and came back to the same place. Like we'd rented our house, came back to our house.
Wait, so Dean was you left and came back and Dean was still there?
No, Dean was the guy in Alabama. Richie was my friend,
the one that you left. Okay.
Yeah, in Texas, and he hadn't seen it like in 78. Like I was just raving about Star Wars, waiting. I can't wait to get back and talk to him about it. Because like we would have to write letters back then. Like no one was paying for a long distance call for two little kids to talk to each other. So it's like a whole year of like I can't wait to talk about Star Wars, and then he hadn't seen it. Like that was a crazy thing.
Yeah, he's like, is it better than Star Trek? Come on, man.
Like Rescuers, where I thought we were going to talk about. I've been waiting a whole year to talk to Rescuers.
Yeah, he took copious notes about the Rescuers, assuming that's what you guys are going to talk about.
What Star Wars is, man. You're just going on and on about Star Wars. Let's talk about.
This is I'll segue into the superpowers thing really quick because most of the people who know me now know me for superpowers, right?
Sure. Yes. Well, okay, so for people that maybe don't know, why do people know you for superpowers?
He's getting
the hell out.
Okay,
sorry.
No. Because I run around stealing people's superpowers. It's my thing. No, I started a website in the 90s, Superpowers Archive. I've broken the news for most of the prototypes anyone's ever seen and the stuff that's trickled out. And now I'm doing covers for DC Comics with superpowers on them. And I did the whole toy section for the Jack Kirby Omnibus about all his designs and superpowers and stuff. And I know something about the toy line.
A little bit.
So the whole thing that led up to that was Star Wars, because in 1978 the movie had been out for a while. I still didn't have any toys, still in Alabama, walking through the mall with my mom and I think my sisters, and I don't know, it could have been a stationery store, could have been at a drugstore, I don't even remember. But I saw something that caught my eye. It said Star Wars in big white letters with a big black stroke around it. And it was Marvel Comics Star Wars number 3, with Chewbacca on the cover, like busting out. And it's in a Whitman 3-pack of comics. And again, I had no earthly idea there was such a thing as Star Wars comics. The only comics I had read up to that point were like Donald Duck and Richie Rich, Harvey stuff and Looney Tunes, just an occasional thing to pick up. Was really not aware of Spider-Man and these guys outside of the pop culture, version of them. The TV shows hadn't happened yet. It would just be like the old 60s cartoons, maybe. Everyone knows the theme song.
Sure.
So I talked my mom into getting me this 3-pack of comics, just blown away, thinking it was a brand new story. And I still remember this feeling like carrying, like I didn't open them up till I got home. I was like just carrying this pack and thinking like there's 3 new movies in this thing. So it was a very strange experience to read them and be like, wait a minute, they just split the movie up into 3 parts. Where's the rest of it? And then the same thing played out like a year later. I remember seeing Star Wars Marvel number 11 on the stands, where it's got the big Luke's on the water planet. And it's got this big sea serpent that I guarantee you that's where the Boba Fett sequence of Nelvana's cartoon came from, was that comic. Must have been there right before they went in production. Anyway, so started collecting Star Wars comics. To a point. I think I collected up until the 20s, you know? Then the toys were out. I went all into the toys. Just, that was the big thing. And it's funny because I thought I had like all the Kenner stuff. But in retrospect, I had everything they put out for Star Wars.
Oh, right.
Okay. Sure.
And then I don't even know if I had half of everything for Empire. Didn't have all the figures, definitely didn't have all the play sets, didn't have all the vehicles, had some stuff.
Which isn't that much, like, because I've recently completed the vintage.
Yeah.
And it really starts to explode with Return of the Jedi in terms of like characters in the line, you know? So that's probably what, like 20 something figures maybe at that point?
Well, there was 21 before Empire.
Yeah.
Right. 21
Empire
back.
has.
And then Empire had 36 back, had Yoda, if I recall.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the 48 back. I haven't thought about this in a long time. So
Hey, we're going to talk about Power of the Force too, so don't feel bad if you're fuzzy on the original line.
Anyway, I think that's where that landed. But so here's the crazy thing. So Christmas 1980, I'm all in on Empire. Like, love the movie, love the toys. The Empire to me was the most toyetic of all the films. The Hoth stuff, the creatures, like I was just waiting for every single thing, from the space slug to an asteroid playset. I just thought it just could never stop, you know?
I actually have a question for both of you guys. You both saw it in theaters. I have heard stories that initially people were kind of put off by Empire Strikes Back. By the time I saw it, it was already like codified as like the best Star Wars movie. But what was like both of y'all's experience of seeing that film, since it was a different tone and a different feel than the first Star Wars movie?
I was young enough that you just take everything at face value. You don't question anything. You just go, this is just the next chapter. This is what happened. This is where the characters are at. You have no real critical analysis of it. If you are analyzing it in any way, you're saying like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that thing happened. Not, I can't believe they wrote it that way. You just, it is what it is. It just exists.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Jason?
So I remember seeing this with my family, because I probably talked about nothing else up until this movie came out.
Circle the newspaper. Like.
I remember my dad being very unhappy when it ended. He probably didn't even remember Star Wars. He was and he still is, nonfiction, history buff, systems analyst. So he liked World War II movies, but he much prefer World War II documentaries. Like he's someone who watches the History Channel, nonstop, and for some reason British TV, but that's another thing. So he was very disappointed that it ended on a cliffhanger, especially for someone who wasn't into Star Wars. He probably was just like, "What is this thing my kids are?"
We got to come back again. Jesus, how long is this thing gonna go on?
It's and I don't think he saw Jedi. I don't by that point I was going into high school when Jedi came out, and me and my friends just all went together, and that was kind of that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I saw Lord of the Rings. And I was like, this is the greatest movie in the history of the world. My dad showed me Star Wars, and I was like, Dad, this is the next thing. I'm taking you to see this. We're gonna go see it. And we watch it, and the whole thing is like, and it ends like, wait, nothing's resolved. They're just keep going. Like, what the hell? And he was so pissed. He has still to this day never seen the follow-up Lord of the Rings movies.
I've got a great aside. So when Lord of the Rings came out, I was working on the Burger King toys, the huge set that came out, right? So,
and for those who don't know, yes, after the website you helped make toys for.
Yeah, I was a toy designer for a good chunk of time.
Was that the one that had like the 15 figures and like a ring or whatever?
19.
Literally just got Boromir. Somebody sent Jay Reichert sent in Boromir, and we got that. We opened it up on our live stream 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 19 pieces. The rings in the center, and if you push down and turn the ring, it activates all of them. They all have lights and sounds and motions.
Crazy.
That's a podcast in and of itself for that.
When we get to that Burger King toy line, we'll bring you on.
One special episode just for that.
So my family and I went to see the Lord of the Rings movies every year they came out, 3 years in a row, right?
Yep.
Everyone loves these things. We get out of the Return of the King, we're leaving, and my dad just says out of the blue, I really hate these movies. And we all looked at him like, Why'd you go to the second two?
He waited till the very
Never
end.
said anything like he was expecting them to change or something.
Yeah, he was waiting for him to get good. When's something
they're
good
like
gonna
3
happen?
hours long. It's like
12
why did
hours
you-
later.
We wouldn't
This
have
is
cared
good.
if
You
he
should check
didn't
out the Battle of
show
Iwo
up, so-
Jima. You've seen anything about the Battle of Midway? That's where
Right.
the real
That's-
stuff
that's
happened.
my dad. At a certain point, I stopped going to movies with dad. And yet he went to all the Marvel movies. I don't know. He likes that stuff, and he loved Indiana Jones. So that's
Okay.
that's
All right.
close enough in that wheelhouse. So all the way back, Christmas 1980. I had a bunch of the toys. I got some of the toys for Christmas, but in my stocking, my mom had found and just stuck something in my stocking, and it was Marvel Comics, Star Wars number 44, the last issue of the Empire adaptation. And it, just like the movie did, just like the toys did, it just tripped something in my mind, because by that point I'm almost 11, or was 11 at the end of 1980. I was 11, was riding my bike to the arcade where I wasn't supposed to go, and the five and dime and stuff to pick up toys myself. So me and my best friend and some people we knew went into middle school that year, started collecting comics, and that's when I picked up all those Star Wars issues that I had read. And before, I just read them and threw them away. It wasn't collecting; it was just reading. So now I was collecting. I had to find these new things called direct market stores, comic shops, which before that point I didn't even know were a thing. And quickly I caught up to 43 issues, which is not that big of a deal. And again, it's 1980, so they're all probably like 10 cents to a quarter, because I'm just buying them out of the bins. There's no bags and boards back then. It was just piles of them in a used bookstore corner. And the collecting bug was like, because again, toys didn't come out, not a ton of them came out at once.
Yeah.
And comics were cheap. So it was like, what else can I collect?
Yeah.
And I'm going to the store, and now this old man who runs the used bookstore in my town knows me. And so I start picking up Spectacular Spider-Man. And that's how I found out about Daredevil. And then I found out about, I started collecting Amazing Spider-Man, eventually getting back into like the 30s, which I still got pretty cheap, Right. Everything before that was starting to get expensive in the 80s.
Yeah.
But that led me to the X-Men, because they show up in Amazing Spider-Man 161 with Nightcrawler, and I never had seen Wolverine or any of these characters before. It was like probably 1981 at this point. And then I start collecting X-Men when John Byrne is leaving. Nice. So that led me to picking up Secret Wars, like the first set of Secret Wars. But then I go into high school in 1984. 83, 84 was my freshman year in high school. So I just get rid of the toys. Like, I got the first set of Return of the Jedi figures, and that was it. I remember, I think it was like the last day of middle school, and getting my parents to take me to Toys R Us or Lionel Play World, I think was the closer big thing, and finding like Royal Guard, Squid Head, maybe General Medine if he was out in the first wave. It was the figures nobody wanted that were left.
Yes.
And that day, I still remember this. Someone at school saw Return of the Jedi. His parents didn't make him to go to school the second to last day of school. They took him to the movies instead.
Nice.
And we went that weekend. Like, we didn't get to go because it came out. I think it came out on a Wednesday. It was like the whenever he was doing the May 25th thing back then. So anyway, got rid of the toys. Just throughout.
So did you get rid of them, or did your parents like say, "Hey, son, it's time"? Like, what was the?
It was such a non-thing. Nobody remembers.
Okay. All right.
They got packed away, and what happened to them after they got packed away? I might have thrown them out. They might have thrown them out because they just went in the garage or someplace. But at some point, they got thrown out. Most of them. So then went through high school, collected comics for years and years and years. And I was the Marvel guy. My best friend in high school was the DC guy.
Yeah.
And so we would go to the comic shop we trade each other's comics wherever we went right after that. We'd immediately read each other's comics and then take our comics home to read them. So that's how, like, and that was around Crisis. So Crisis was my jumping on point, and I kind of knew everything for the next like 5 years, and we became like roommates in college and everything else. So that was all that. So I'm gonna get a little heavy here for a second. So it's not terribly heavy now, but it's a little bit of a downer for a toy thing. But this is part of the general story, because you guys asked how I got into all this.
Absolutely.
So in 84, I guess, maybe 85, we're in high school. So my best friend, the kid when I came back from Alabama, Richie, we, just were growing apart. We lived across the street from each other, but we were growing apart, still kind of hung out. But that year, I think probably for my birthday, he gave me 3 Superpowers figures.
Oh, wow.
Batman, Green Lantern, and Aquaman.
Nice.
I think I said thank you and threw them in a drawer, because I was not a DC fan. And that was probably pre-Crisis.
Don't even know me anymore.
Happening, and I kind of felt like that's what I kind of felt like. Like, I'd already gotten rid of the toys, and I felt like you're thinking of someone from 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it just felt like really weird. Like, wow, we really don't know each other now.
Right. Yeah.
I'm interested in girls and other stuff, and it was like, I never even collected these comics. So it was this weird thing of like, thanks. This is awkward. And they went in a drawer or something. And then, so years go by. That was 84, probably into 84, early 85. And I wasn't even aware they made anything past those figures, because again, I got Wolverine and Dr. Octopus from the first wave of Secret Wars, because I couldn't believe there was a Wolverine figure.
Yes.
And that was it. Like, I didn't even pay attention. And I remember we would still go to toy stores to get like cap guns and squirt guns and stuff. And I wasn't looking at action figures, wasn't paying attention to any of that. And I started working in 88, 89 at one of the first Disney stores.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be an animator for a long time. So that was the big thrust of my thing. So one of the worst jobs still I've had to this day. That's, again, lots of stories. At some point, I always
worse because it's retail, and retail is like the worst. Or
no, we were the 11th store in the country, and Disney at the time looked at the stores as an extension of the parks, and they had never done retail.
Oh, okay.
And so they thought, this is going to be a magical experience for everyone, where we can take a piece of the parks and put it all across the country. So if you can't make it to a park, the park can come to you.
Sure.
But we don't understand retail. So let's hire lifelong retail people to run these stores. And that was oil and water right there.
Yeah.
Because they had all of these park rules of, you can't tell people to leave the store. You can't close till people leave the store, and you can't tell people to leave the store. You have to wait till they wander out.
Whoa.
And we close 25 minutes after every store in the mall. So guess where every person in the mall goes?
Yeah.
When there's only one store open, and nobody's telling them to leave. So some nights we weren't locking up till midnight.
The most magical place in Alabama. Yeah, right.
It was San Antonio, Texas.
That's why. This is 88?
88, 89. And it did crazy amounts of business because we were the closest thing to like Mexico City. So all these wealthy nationals would come up from Mexico City and just buy out the store like every holiday. Wow. So we would outdo all the stores on the holidays. But
yeah. I remember going, because it must have come. There was one in Parkway Plaza in El Cajon, California, and maybe 90. I remember going to those early Disney stores, and it was kind of like, that and the Warner Brothers store, just like retail of the late 80s.
Oh, yeah,
90s,
they were fun. They were definitely fun places.
So much
and
fun.
So yeah, it's a whole podcast in and of itself, but
I'm logging all the future Jason guest appearances.
It was crazy because they would. An Imagineer came out one time because one of the animatronics broke, because everything was bespoke up until our store. So he came out to fix it, but then he taught me how to fix it because I was the one who was so interested in this stuff.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
And
those, again, people that didn't grow up with the old Disney store, those and like it was incredible. Like
it was, and they built
awesome.
all that at the parks. And unfortunately, that meant I was the one who had to fix it every time they broke, whether I was working that day or not. And they would call me at like 5 a.m. and say, you have to come in before class or whatever and fix this. Like, it was a horrible job. How
long did you do that, by the way?
Huh?
How long did you do that job?
8 months, I think. It's the only job I've ever. It's the only job in my life I've ever just walked out on the spur of the moment, like quit on the spot and just walked out of the store.
That's a podcast. We'll start that podcast about ways you quit jobs. I have had a lot of jobs and I have quit all of them, and it's been fantastic. I've got a lot of great stories.
Yeah, and I hadn't planned on quitting.
The day I quit.
That's the other thing, is I had not planned on quitting, and it was anyway. But that job led into Toys R Us because that's the closest thing to the Disney store I could think of.
Sure.
And I still wasn't collecting toys or caring about toys when I worked at Toys R Us in 1989.
Fascinating.
Which is a pivotal year for toys for
Absolutely.
many reasons, but definitely DC toys.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, 1990 rolls around, spring 1990. And Richie, my friend, kills himself. So that's the little downer part of the whole thing.
Oh, that's terrible.
It's a little out of the blue downer, but
yeah.
So my guy Chris, who's still one of my best friends of all time to this day, was over at my house like a couple of months later, and as was his wont, he was opening drawers and messing with stuff, and one day he painted my do-bags eyes with whiteout, which I will still never forgive to this day because you can't get that stuff off. And he found in the drawer Aquaman, Batman, and Green Lantern. And he said, "Hey, I'm going to take these." And I said,
because he's the DC guy.
He was the DC guy.
Yeah.
And I said, anything else I would, but this is literally the only thing I have that Richie gave me, and I had forgot I even had them. And I said, so I feel weird giving you those.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think that my entire career and everything boiled down to that moment in my life.
Yeah.
Which he describes it as you being incredibly selfish.
What?
Because he wanted those figures. You know, this is how best friends talk. So I said, no, you can't have him. He gets mad. He leaves. 5 or 6 days later, comes rushing over to my house. He's holding a Green Arrow figure.
Okay.
He happened to be at a local flea market. He looks down and he sees a Green Arrow figure. And both of us were like, just minds blown. Because Superman, Batman, there's always those around.
Sure.
Yeah.
Green Arrow, we were like, what is this witchcraft? Like, it was just mind-blowing that something like this would exist.
Yep.
And so we immediately went back to the flea market, like went to every single stall looking for these things. I think we found Dr. Fate. We found probably like a parademon.
Dr. Fate's such a good figure.
You know, maybe a Martian Manhunter. Like, it was so insane, and literally, and we found Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
And the next thing we did is we went to my house and his house, and we said, we're going to go find all our old toys and see what we're missing. And neither of us had any old toys. That's
your parents like, about that.
Yeah, at some point, they were gone. So the next few years was just us hitting every garage sale and flea market. And
oh, wow. Okay. So it's just.
So by 1993.
Were you, just real quick, were you still working on your stick collection at this point? You still
Funny enough, the sticks no one ever threw away. Like I just had these
one
rotten
threw
moldy
the sticks
sticks in my closet, and I couldn't figure it out. Now I will say this, and this is what's really funny. Is when I was collecting the toys as a kid, and my friend Richie was collecting at the same time. You know, his toys, if he opened them out of the package, they stayed pristine on the shelf. He was very much like a proto collector.
Yeah, that was my friend Jack. Yep, that was that guy.
Everything had to be perfect, and he got that. The first thing I did when I got a new vehicle or playset was get out the screwdriver and figured out how those electronics work. And then I started kit bashing. And I had like one of my favorite ships was the Scorpion, which was a TIE fighter body that I put snow speeder guns where the wings are. And then I put the Millennium Falcon chair coming out the back like a scorpion tail.
Nice.
Like the gunner chair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Oh
Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, so yes, my toys were thrown away probably because my parents thought they were trash.
Little Sid
Over
over there.
Well played with.
Yeah.
Like we would hammer together pieces of wood to try to make play sets ourselves. Like that was the thing. So
good.
Yeah, by 93, 94, I had gotten almost a complete vintage collection, which I did not have remotely when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I had all the superpowers but Cyborg. I got Cyborg in 95. Wow. I think I paid $40 because I found someone who.
Well, I mean, adjusted for inflation. I'm curious, actually. Keep going.
Yeah, that was a good buy. He was a tough one to get, which is funny. But like I never bought the Riddler. I found the Riddler for cheap, but I was like, that's not a real toy. That's a bootleg.
Yeah.
Man, I saw one at Toylanta this weekend. I have a complete vintage collection, but I don't have that Riddler. And somebody had one for $700. I was like, nope.
See, and it's a bootleg. You know, Capitan Rayo.
If you say it's a bootleg, then I can just rest assured it's a bootleg.
I could have had a whole set of the like we were the ones who unveiled the Colombian figures online for the first one. Me and my partner Eric Myers at Raving Toy Maniac. And he got a full set, and I could have got a full set at the same time from some guy in Colombia. For like $110. Like, and I just was like, I'm not going to spend my money on these bootlegs. That's like, I could go down to like Matamoros and, you know, go to some stall there and find bootlegs if I went to toy one.
Yeah. I looked up adjusted for inflation, $109 sorry, $83 today. So not that bad.
Not that bad. No, it was still a good deal. I had to borrow the money to get it, but it was still a good deal. So I ended up working at Toys R Us like 2 more times. Now that'll all come back to Power of the Force, because we're working our way to
yes
too. So I had all the Star Wars figures, and I should have sent you pictures because I had this. I custom built these shelves and just had like
oh wow,
tons and tons of all the Star Wars on one thing. And I had superpowers, and by that time, like Batman Animated was coming out, and I had a brief foray into Ninja Turtles because nothing else was. Again, it's that dearth of collecting. You reach a point where I've caught up with everything and I can't find the things I need. What's filling that void? Oh, Ninja Turtles is on the shelves right now. I need this PandaCon. So
I had all too well.
Yeah. So that kind of that mania. And again, I think Dan talked about this a little earlier. It's weird for kids now to be in this universe that never ends because toy lines were finite.
We talked about that last week of this is this dark age of Star Wars and it just took a break. It's fine. It's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild because I could catch up to Star Wars because there was nothing out. There weren't Bendums. Like the books hit in what, 90?
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah.
Heir to the Empire and stuff. And so there was that stretch of like nothing. Marvel Comics ended in 85. I collected the Star Wars comic until it died. And I never picked up the Dark Horse ones, which is bizarre because I was into toys by the time that hit. So that's kind of where everything was in 94, 95, right? I was in Lubbock going to Texas Tech. If you guys have never been to Lubbock, Texas, There's nothing there. I was working at Toys R Us for the third time because there's also no jobs. I was on like I think my 7th year of college, but it was it was off and on. It wasn't 7 consecutive years. I would take off a semester. I'd work doing data entry stuff, and I'd go back and usually switch colleges, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Quick aside, I was a film major at UT and everything when like Owen Wilson was there and Wes Anderson, Robert Rodriguez, and Matthew McConaughey. Didn't know any of them. Had a friend who knew Robert Rodriguez in the Pharmaco study that he went to raise money for El Mariachi.
Nice. Oh, wow, that's cool. I was
working at the Texas Capitol with him, so that was interesting.
That's awesome.
But I wanted to be a movie director and stuff. And another story we won't go into, but I'll just drop it it's a great name drop as an aside. I was talked out of it by Jim Cameron, of all people. I got to visit the set of True Lies as his guest.
Okay.
And I blogged about it before. I've got some pictures and stuff. And he was just an amazing guy. I spent 2 days where he's just basically shadowing him while he filmed True Lies. And what he filmed was Jamie Lee Curtis's striptease scenes, because we were supposed to watch like the big bathroom shootout, and we saw the sets being built, but something happened with the schedule or the sets. It was like the first week of filming, and so they just moved the schedule. And so I got to meet her. Tony Curtis brought her to set, so I got to meet Tony Curtis.
Oh my God.
Yeah, talked to Arnold, and I'd already met Arnold at the Texas Capitol like the year before, which is also a weird thing to be like, you don't remember me, but I just met you a few months ago. But it was really cool because I'm standing behind the camera in those scenes and stuff, and he was talking about all his plans for Spider-Man. And
that's right, yeah.
But seeing all that, and I had been on sets for like local commercials in San Antonio, and they filmed like this movie called Lost Angels that a friend of mine was like a PA on, so I was kind of in the periphery of seeing some stuff with one of the Beastie Boys was in it. And he was just talking about because I think I asked what should I do to be a director, what job should I do to work my way up, and he said, you don't. You want to be a director, go direct something. Like he said, you direct your dog eating his food, you're a director. He goes, the best grip in the world is not a director. The best cinematographer in the world doesn't become a director. He goes, you're either director or you're not. And it was kind of this call to action of now go direct something. Yeah. And I left thinking, wow, I'm not a director. None of this stuff excited me. It was a weird epiphany of my whole life since I came out of Star Wars, by the way, wanting to be a director, which didn't even know what a director was. I came out of that movie in 1977. I wanted to do special effects, and I did stop motion films, the whole thing. Great movies, did all these things up till then. And at that moment, I was just like, this isn't what I'm going to do.
I had a similar sort of epiphany when I got out of college. I was 100% convinced I was going to go walk into Marvel, walk into Dark. I was going to be a comic book artist. No question about it. Best artist in my class, blah, blah, blah. I'm like punching out comics and stuff. And as soon as I graduated, I was like, oh man, I'm now going to try to compete with Alex Ross and Frank Miller and Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee. And I can't do that. I don't think I'm up to that yet. And like you just said, it was like, all you have to do to be a professional artist is just go be a professional artist.
Yeah, that's it.
If you've got the ability, if you can produce the work, they will hire you. You will get work. And then I was like, wow, I really had to look at my portfolio and say, I don't have it. I'm not ready yet.
And I try not to be bitter again about kids these days where they have YouTube to tell them all this stuff and people like watching this to tell them, because back then I just thought it's just like drawing. For the longest time, I thought if it was either in your head and made it out to your hands or it wasn't. I didn't realize you have to practice. I didn't realize you have to do all this stuff to become a better artist. And I was one of those kids who growing up, people would always say, oh my God, your art is so brilliant. Your art is so brilliant, because I was in a small town. Yeah. And it was for a certain level, but I didn't have an art teacher. I had wonderful art teachers who were like, "You're a wonderful artist. Go draw in the corner for however long. We'll give you an A." I didn't have someone saying, "Go look at these artists."
Yeah.
And practice. Anyway, I went to Lubbock. I was an advertising major. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Mass communications. Fairly aimless. Working at Toys R Us. And looking at people at Toys R Us too in their 30s and 40s, and just thinking like, wow, this is probably going to be me at this point, because I just have no idea what kind of path there is. And one of my professors at the end of class one day just looked out at a bunch of us and said, "Does anyone want an email?" And I was like, okay. And I had just gotten a big computer. My apartment flooded and took out my comic collection.
Oh, damn.
In 92, which was a blessing because it was
like freed you.
Well, it was right before the peak of the boom. Like if it happened the next year, I would have gotten 3 times as much because I got just insurance coverage for it. So they
sure.
But they paid me replacement value because back then no one knew what comics were. So they just went through the Overstreet guide for my beat up comic collection and gave me like $16,000, which for a 21-year-old, that was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So I bought a computer for $6,000, which was like a 4633 that had 16 drives. Some guy said, if you build this huge tower, you'll never have to upgrade it. Like it was gone
for 2 years.
Yeah. And so he totally ripped me off. I got this custom built thing that I didn't need. But I got a computer, and then I did a bunch of data entry stuff where I learned about a computer, for insurance company for a while. So I wasn't online. I was on BBSs back then. Like I was downloading shareware Doom on like 15 discs, floppy disk, that kind of stuff. So yeah, he signed me up to Tech's internet, gave me an account, signed me up, showed me Usenet, which was like the big thing. This was like 90, end of 93, early 94, somewhere around there. And the first thing, of course, I did was hop on all the toy groups. I right off the bat met like Gus Lopez and Michael Crawford, who the guys are still kicking around. Chip Cataldo, Eric Myers, who I still talk to, but who ended up being my partner. And so Gus had just started the Star Wars Collectors Archive. Now I can't remember what these things are called. But the SWCA, toysorgus.com. And Randy Matthews in Hawaii had started the action figure webpage, which was the first general action figure webpage.
What year was that? 95 or 94?
Like 94 going into 95. And so the graphic web with Mosaic had just really started propagating, because Tech didn't get on until end of 94. They were still like all text-based. So you're still dealing with Archie and links, and again, you're on Usenet, and everything is crazy. And then they got graphic interfaces. So the first thing I did was I built a goofy cartoon website with all my cartoon characters, and it was like Tintin and Popeye and Lawrence of Arabia and hamsters and how to find the weather, that kind of stuff. And then I realized really quick 2 things. And this was, again, a life-changing epiphany, because I remember I was in Fredericksburg, Texas. That's where my grandfather lived. I was going between San Antonio and Lubbock, which is like a 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
And I stopped to see my grandfather to be nice. This is like gruff old German man, so wasn't always fuzzy, cuddly.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think we went to like a Golden Corral or something. It was like me, my dad, and my sister or whatever, and we see my grandfather, and then I'm going to go on to Tech. And I remember this moment because the whole collecting I did with my friend, Chris, at flea markets and all this stuff. Also, oddly enough, I knew Harry Knowles like back from 91, like because he was a vendor with his dad at these flea markets and
Yeah.
and UI garage sales selling toys. I got a sealed cantina from him for $20. I always remember that because I didn't open it. I sold it for like 60 like a year later.
Nice.
But it took us forever. Like we couldn't believe, like I said, there was a Green Arrow figure, but we didn't know who else got made. It probably was like 6 months. And I still have this. We found a tier card. And it was like him with the card. Like it wasn't a carded figure, but they had the card back at this flea market. And we were just staring at this 3rd series card back of like, that doesn't look like Orion. You know, who the hell is Cyclotron? Who's Golden Pharaoh? Like it was just these baffling things. Like it really was like archaeology back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember we went to this guy's house because he had we would circle the newspaper garage sales and people saying collectibles and stuff. This guy's house, and we got a Power of the Force A-Wing.
Nice.
For like, I think like $16 or something. And we had to really debate over we wanted to spend $16 on the thing.
A little more than that now.
But he had the galaxy map that came with it. And that was like, oh my God, this is like, again, a roadmap to it's you know.
I think we talked about it a little bit on the previous episode here, where there was just this period before eBay became a thing, before Craigslist, before all of this stuff.
Yes.
You literally never thought you would see some of this stuff ever again.
Yes.
No.
And even just to see pictures of it, like you're the same era you're talking about. So I started college in 94, probably about 95, right about Star Wars Power of the Force 2. Me and my sweet mates are getting really into collecting vintage Star Wars, and any booklet, magazine, anything we could find that had pictures of the vintage figures in it was like holy scripture.
Yes.
It was like pictures of things, like we're like going over every little detail of the sculpt and the paint and the trying to, just the nuances of everything. Like you just said, finding out about things characters we didn't know were made. It was just a weird time.
It's so weird. But that's what was so cool about the early days of the internet and people that made web pages like yourself, because it was just like, okay, now there's like this collected work that
so that's it. So that leads me to my point. I'm at this Golden Corral and I'm sitting there, and I had seen probably Gus's page and some of these general things. Usenet, I was heavy into Usenet then. People knew me. I knew people. And I just thought, hey, it took me so long to amass this information about superpowers. Why don't I put it all online? Like, why don't I help the other people who don't know about this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember sitting there like it was like a lightning bolt hit me, because there were hardly any toy pages out there. They were just kind of general, this is what people are shopping for. So I went like that weekend and started writing Jason Geyer's action figure website. I think that was or Action Figure Archives. It was still archiving it. And everything was in like MS Paint. Like I didn't have Photoshop for another year or two. And I had gotten this black and white hand scanner. I don't know if you guys remember hand scanners.
No.
So hand scanners, if you look them up, like Logitech hand scanner. So they were tethered, and they were like, they're like this. This is exactly what they look like. This is like one of these label makers. But they look like this.
Okay.
And you put this on a piece of paper or something, and then you moved it. Okay, so it didn't move across the picture. Yeah. You had to move it, and so you had to keep a consistent speed.
Like
that's exactly that's the one I had right there.
Okay,
nice.
That thing was an absolute nightmare.
Scan man.
So I got one of those, and it only scanned in black and white.
Hey Jason, just so if you want to get back into it, it's only $13.96.
Yeah, it's still too high, man. That is not worth that $13.96.
It's 30% off. I'm just letting you know.
You can put your serial port connector back on your hard drive.
Yeah, the SCSI connector. The way my collecting works, I probably still have the manual for that damn thing somewhere. But it is long gone. So I wrote down everything I knew about the toys, and again, apologies to everyone who looked at my sites back in the day. There was probably some misinformation because the way information was all traded back then.
Sure.
But I wrote everything down, and then like I watched my sister's dogs for the summer. Her husband was a fighter pilot in Korea, so she went and spent the summer in Korea, and I watched her dogs. She, you know, had them with me in Lubbock, and as a thank you when they got back, she got me a scanner. But I skipped a point. She got me the scanner, but that's not how I set up the arc. Now I remember. I actually went to Best Buy and bought a scanner because you had 72 hours to return something.
Scan it all. Zip, zip, zip,
Back,
zip, zip,
well,
zip.
back in the day, again, I had to take with my little Pentax, back, I don't know what they were, the point and shoot cameras before they were DSLRs, but they still were 35 millimeter film. So I had to take pictures of all the superpowers, which I have somewhere outside. Like I set up a little photo thing. I didn't have lights, so I had to set it up, make sure the sun wasn't too high or too low, and then took shots of everything. I took all the Batman animated figures and superpowers. I think some Superman figures. No, they weren't out yet, because this would have been like 95.
Yeah, Man of Steel was 96.
Yeah, 96.
I think. Yeah.
So, and same with Superman animated. So that wasn't there. So I took, maybe Star Wars stuff. So I took pictures of Star Wars stuff. Then you have to go get the film developed.
Yeah.
Which is a pain. So once I had all that, I went to Best Buy, I bought the scanner, and then I didn't sleep for like 3 days because those scans took forever.
Sure.
Yeah. I was gonna say
big, slow scans, and I had
very
something
slow.
like 92 photos to scan.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so I did that, took it back right in time, and of course they're giving me the stink eye the whole time, and I'm like, it didn't work. It's not what I needed. And then I wrote the archive and put everything on there, and yeah, it was one of the first toy websites. Right before Power of the Force hit, which is also crazy because everybody wanted that to happen. For like every year, people talked about they're going to bring back Star Wars this year.
Yeah,
They're
I guess
going to bring back Star Wars.
describe those conversations to me, because we talked a little about last week, like where were we at when we heard or what we knew or whatever, but you were far more connected maybe into that conversation.
Well,
like what were people saying?
I wasn't connected outside of anyone else. Just we all talked to each other, and it was still a sizable community, you know, a few hundred people. And one of the things that was interesting was there was this guy who's still around somewhere, I'm sure, George Emmons. So George, Chris Georgialos, I can't think of how to pronounce his name, but he's
George.
He's still around, you know. But these guys, Gus, who they were the first guys who were hunting down like Kenner employees and looking for prototypes and stuff. And that was the big thing for like Star Wars, but the other toy lines, almost nobody was doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And George, which I didn't know at the time, he was in New York. He was just making friends with people at companies and calling companies. So Tomarts was new. Toy Fair wasn't out yet.
Okay.
Tomarts was new. And it was, if anyone read early Tomarts, like there's a lot of supposition and some misinformation and a lot of unlabeled pictures.
I remember we've talked about, because I think I've reached out to you before, like researching for videos or whatever, and just like they may have said that, but it was just completely, you know, baseless lies or whatever.
Tom Bush knew stuff, but what he didn't know, he never let that got in the way of what he felt like saying. And a lot of it was just 100% made up. And he would
ready for the internet, ready for YouTube.
Yeah, he would put it on the covers and stuff. So George had a Usenet newsletter, and Adam Paulus came out around 80 or 95, 96 with his, because we hosted, like when we first did Raving Toy Maniac, we hosted his newsletter for a number of years. So George just talked to people at companies, but he I think like once a month he put on Usenet, here's the rumors at every single company. And it was crazy because you had like Playmate Star Trek was going strong at that point. You still had Ninja Turtles. You had like Street Sharks and stuff. Like Mattel was hardly in the game at that time, but they still had a few things. And that was kind of it. I just lived for reading those updates.
Okay.
And he had an infamous April Fool's one that was like, it came out in 95, like right after Star Wars came out, and he was talking about, oh, they're gonna do like all the holiday special figures, and it's gonna be Tarkin, and it's like just this wish list of stuff. But like every company, like X-Men's gonna do Jim Lee figures, and you know, it's just crazy. And everybody bought into it. And you just saw people talking about it for like the next year that would still come back around, even though he said almost immediately it's an April Fool's. But yeah, so that was the big thing. And then in 95, so I'll talk a little bit about 95. So Power of the Force happens.
Yep.
It was rumored it was going to happen. Tomart's had a blurb saying like, we can't talk about this, but we found this Luke Skywalker at a flea market. Like
that's how they really, okay.
They
like a Ohio, I guess. Was Kenner wasn't being made in Ohio anymore, right?
Oh, yeah. Kenner was still in Cincinnati.
Was it? Okay.
Cincinnati.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And so people knew something was up. And like I said, like the Bendhams came out a year or so before. Micro Machines started coming out before. So it felt like
momentum was going that way.
Pump was being primed. The books had hit huge. I think 94 was the first word George Lucas is starting to write the next movies. But Lucasfilm never said this. Like you kept seeing it being reported like it was a done deal. And we know now that yes, in 94 he started writing the next movies. But there was no like press release saying George Lucas is working on the next Star Wars movies. It was just this undercurrent. And he didn't do anything. We didn't hear about him. But Power of the Force, the first place pictures appeared was Hero magazine. I don't know if you guys remember Hero. It was like
I don't.
But there was Wizard was starting to spin out some stuff, other different issues, and then there were also some competitors. Inquest magazine, all that stuff.
Yeah. So what happened is they showed it at Toy Fair, and it was under wraps. Like you guys.
Okay, so it was one of the only for
yes. Yeah. We are showing you this first wave. No one can talk about it. It's going to be unveiled later in the year, et cetera, et cetera. And Hero ran the press photos, like the Toy Fair catalog photos. So it's what was on the back of the package. It was the cross sell. So they ran that for, I think it was X-Wing Land Speeder, Millennium Falcon, and the first wave minus Leia. That's what they showed pictures for. And people just lost their minds. This is one of my fun, crazy stories. I was the first person in Lubbock, Texas to get these figures.
How? Okay, how?
That's right. You're asking me how in the world could that have happened? Well, for one thing, Lubbock was weird in that it had one of every store you could possibly want, but only one of every store. And the closest big town, Lubbock was the big town in West Texas. Dallas is 5 hours away. San Antonio is 6 hours away. Amarillo's like an hour and a half, 2 hours north. Midland, Odessa is like an hour south. West. So Lubbock is going to get it if anyone is. And you're in a college town, so there's other collectors. You got to compete with everyone. So there was always this tension of, will I be first? Even I was working at Toys R Us, and there was tension of, is this going to come in when I'm not there? I was there when Power Rangers hit big that first year. And they sat for most of the year, and then all of a sudden they became a thing, and then people were accosting me at the parking lot because we only got like one shipment of everything.
So how did you get it then?
I got it because Usenet, this is the first thing I ever remember like this on Usenet. Someone found them at a service merchandise somewhere and said service merchandise for some reason got them in first nationwide. They got shipped these things first, and they got the UPC off the boxes. And do you guys remember service merchandise?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I don't, but
Okay, so Service Merchandise was this weird, not quite a warehouse type store. It was
Sure.
like a Dillard's or a Macy's kind of a thing.
Sure.
But it was also kind of like a Best Buy. But the biggest thing was they were like a showroom, and you told them what you wanted, and they got it out of their warehouse in the back, and they had this conveyor belt thing, the little rollers, that someone in the back threw these things down the conveyor belt, and it came down behind the registers, and they picked it up and put it there, and then you bought it.
Okay.
It was
So
almost
that's
like Toys R Us with the game tickets.
sure. Yeah.
So it was a kind of bizarre shopping thing. Some things you could get off the floor, but a lot of things came out of the back, especially bigger items.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, there was a sell-by date, a stock date on Star Wars because of the
Street
secrecy.
date, yeah.
Stuff. So Service Merchandise had them in the back. Nothing was out in the store. So but that was in the days when they didn't really understand the sell-by date or care. They just know they weren't supposed to put it out right away.
Uh-huh.
So if you went up to them and said, "Hey, I'm looking for this toy. Here's the stock number," they just called to the back and said, "Do you have this stock number in the back?" And the guy like threw a box down there, and I got to open it. And here was everyone but 3PO. That first set was everyone but 3PO.
We talked about that last week. 3PO and Leia were kind of late releases.
Leia was really late. 3PO came a little later, but they weren't. And I don't know if there's manufacturing issues, who knows?
Sure.
Or licensing issues, who knows? But anyway, I got that, I left the other. There's 2 sets in the box, and I left the other set because that's how nice of a guy I was.
You were living by Dan's principle of leaving one for the next collector.
And I probably opened those things in the car. Like I was so, even though all of us were just like, what the shit are these He-Man looking things? Like it really was a big point of debate in the collection.
Sure.
What are they think? Like, what kind of crack are they smoking for this?
Yeah.
But that was it. That was the big thing. And I was excited, but I was also excited knowing I'm the only person in this city who has these.
Yeah.
Like it was.
Did you go on your Usenet and be like, guess what?
And it's funny because I've never been a
anybody get any new Star Wars figures lately?
Yeah, well, that was it. I immediately
you spent the whole weekend scanning a photo of you just flush with Star Wars
to do that. And what's funny is so people were already kind of knowing my website, and I did like a Spider-Man archive for the Toy Biz stuff and Batman the Animated Series archive and those kind of things. Superpowers was always the golden child of the web. Out of the blue, Jason Liebig, who I still know online, collecting candy on Usenet. I think you guys probably know him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy. Wrote me out of the blue and said, "Hey, I've got this figure that I'm pretty sure is Superpowers. It's Man-Bat. Do you want me to send you pictures of it?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because it was just one of those things where you didn't think there's something else. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like,
right.
Fan Suite's book had just come out a year or so before. And that was the first time people had seen like, oh my God, there's Star Wars stuff that they made that never got released.
Right.
Like that was a huge revelation.
Yeah.
And so, I get in the mail, and he was an assistant editor at Marvel at the time. So, and I still have this somewhere. I've got an envelope with Spider-Man on it, and it was the Marvel letter, and that freaked me out too because I didn't even know that. He didn't mention this fact.
Yeah.
And inside were 3 prints of Man-Bat, or maybe it's just 2. Maybe it's just the front and the back of Man-Bat that his brother took because they had been in like their storage unit or something.
That's crazy.
It was super crazy because he had been an intern at DC. And someone at Kenner took the Man-Bat prototype, one of the hard copies, and cast it like early on. To cast the infamous Catwoman. Yeah, probably the same person, and was selling these at a Cincinnati flea market. So someone at DC got some casts, and for the longest time at DC, because people who I knew in the comic industry said in their offices they've got a Superpowers display of behind glass of all the figures. But yeah, so he sent me the pictures, and that is what made my website. It's weird that I could say my career all came from this. Like I had a scoop that no one else had, and no one even knew.
Yeah.
It's something like that.
Wild.
Yeah.
Like it was big news.
I think it's incredible, and it's incredible just how, I don't know, the culmination of early internet, the people that grew up with toys and becoming collectors, people like yourself that are documenting and almost creating a historical record of these things, and then this Power of the Force 2 toy line coming out and kind of just giving a toy line for people to be excited and to collect about again. And you talking about just people being, the rumors and the whispers of the toy line coming back. It's just such a cool time and a place in time that just will never happen again.
No. And it was those years, especially we're talking about like 96. And here's the
other... let's get to 96. I know I want to make sure we get to the toys before we close it out today.
Yeah. The other thing was, after that first trickling, it took forever to find subsequent waves. Like Kenner / Hasbro had really bad distribution problems for a lot of these. You'd think they would have flooded everything with Star Wars, and they just didn't. It took a long time to reach a saturation point where they had their own space on the pegs. You'd come in and you'd see like a figure showing evidence that they got. So it's kind of like what happens now. You go and there's like a superpowered figure. You would just see a little bit, and then you'd rush around. And again, I worked at Toys R Us. One of the coolest things about working at Toys R Us was unloading the truck, because even in the era of Toy Fair and Tomarts and all that, up until like the late 90s, early 2000s, you could still be completely surprised by opening a case. And, we still had a stock room. We still had a warehouse. So all the new Power of the Force, like Lando would show up. I remember when Yoda showed up. It was just like, oh my god. And then you're in this dilemma of, do I stock this? Do I put it in the back? Because me and the guys I worked with, we did have this code of kids came first.
People listening audio only. Dan just mimed.
Yeah. We
going through the motions that are so familiar. It's muscle memory.
No, you can't be that way. We knew the other collectors in town, and we would wait until they did their sweeps of the store to put stuff online on shelves, because we wanted kids to get the stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was
very noble of you.
The big thing working there was, and then it was like, because there's always more than one. So it was like, can I keep this back here in the stock room, put some on the shelves, keep mine in the stock room, and hope the manager doesn't see it, because you're not supposed to hold stuff back, and hope some other collector working in the store with me doesn't grab it before I can get off, because you've got to get off the clock. You've got to clock out.
Okay, you got to wait till you clock out. Okay.
You got to clock out, and you've got to put it somewhere in the store on your way to clock out.
Oh, okay.
Because you can't go back in the stockroom if you're not working.
Right.
Okay, question there.
Yeah.
And then let's jump into the figures of 96. What was the one that got away? Like when you were hoping nobody would have picked, like someone sniped from you before you could clock out and buy it? Any that come to mind? Any memories?
Yeah, and it's a Power of the Force 2 96 figure.
Okay, perfect.
The first unique figure of Power of the Force 2 line. Do you guys know which one it was?
The first unique
figure? The one that had not been made a figure before. The first Power of the Force 2 figure.
I was going to say Bespin Luke, but I mean,
no.
That version.
It's not Bespin Luke.
Oh, that's what I thought, because it's the first time you got this out. But go ahead. Which one?
That's Dagobah Luke.
Right.
Yes.
That is a key distinction. Is Dagobah Luke was the first Power of the Force 2 only figure to be released, and that was hard to get. That was one, I think a coworker called me and said they came in today, because I wasn't working, and I rushed after class to the store, and he was like, someone just got the last one.
Oh, Well, because
that was
Allison
one
was
that
saying, and you can probably put some context on this. This was a pivotal moment in the line because it let people know, oh, we're gonna get to
it was
characters you
huge.
never got
It
before.
was huge because that's what it's what we go through right now with like the Hasbro retro figures. You know, it's the kind of thing of like anyone who was a collector was saying, yeah, I get it, Squid Head or you know whatever, Death Star Gunner, that's great. But what about General Dodonna? What about Tarkin? What about,
yeah. Slave
like
Leia.
that was the big thing. It was just like, come on, give us different Leias.
Yeah,
you know that it's so that was a big thing.
Yeah. And so somebody sniped it from you. That sucks.
Yeah,
How long did it take you to get it?
It happens. It happens. The other thing, this was something that I did for a very long time because it almost always yielded fruit. Is going through Toys R Us and other stores like Target and opening that whole bottom shelf to look under the gondola. Of
course. Yeah.
There was so much. I mean, you go to like an out of the way store and like 90,
there's
91.
There's people who've posted finds not even that long ago where they found
open it up
from the early.
It's like Micronauts are under there. You know, it's just like crazy stuff would be stuck because no one ever cleaned it. You know, Mego Star Trek.
Sure.
Anyway, so Power of the Force 2. So I was all in on the line. Well, and the other thing that was big, and I think it might be 97. I want to say it's 96. I could be wrong. Like Luke Skyhopper, I know was another big thing that was just such a unexpected boom kind of a thing. But let's talk 96 because
let's dive into it. So last week we talked about the figures release in 1995 through the Leia or the monkey face Leia as she was
Anthony Kiedis, yes.
Anthony Kiedis, yeah, that too.
Did you talk about Fruit Loop Han?
No, so in terms, it's kind of fuzzy. Like these were intended for 96, maybe came out 95.
It came out at the end of 95.
Yeah, but so I think we're putting it in this category for 96.
And you know what? I could be. See, now I'm hazy. I want to say the Dagobah Luke came out first, but that Fruit Loop Han was another one that Kenner had not made before. The Stormtrooper.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. I ate a lot of Fruit Loops. I was already eating a lot of Fruit Loops, but I ate them faster to make sure I had
that was a crazy promotion because people were cutting up the boxes.
Yes.
People were going in and just at the store, like taking a razor blade into the store and just slicing the hell out of all these boxes to just gather up.
That's disrespectful to Fruit Loops.
Yeah, crazy amounts of stuff. So I know a lot of like retailers are mad. I think that's why you didn't see. There he is.
There he is.
And not a bad removable helmet either, as far as that goes.
I remember being so excited, and then this box with that little sticker on it, so cool.
Oh god! And then the wait. It was still just the 90s. You had to wait.
Oh yeah, yeah. You had to mail.
This wasn't like Amazon. You're gonna get it 2 days later. This was like good luck, maybe before Christmas.
And I
love finding them now. I love finding them just like people have stacks of them just still in their
nothing was. That's the other thing. Let's talk about this because the 90s and this is just the most bizarre thing from my my standpoint is we came out of the 80s, right? When I started collecting, some things were quote unquote rare. Like you could still find tons and tons of superpowers for $1 a piece, Secret Wars, all of that.
Sure.
70s toys were starting to kind of be rare.
Yeah.
Star Wars were not rare, but Power of the Force were rare. And again, when I started collecting, I had no idea what the hell Power of the Force were. Like that was the big thing.
Power of the Force 1, so 85, 86, 85, 86.
And I remember we went to a flea market like 3 hours out of town, and we found Ramba on card. Again, uncarded him almost immediately, but that's the first time we saw a card back for Power of the Force, and it was just like,
Right?
boom,
But not even in terms of value. Like when Fruit Loop Han came out, the deal was you didn't know what was going to be the next big thing in the future.
That's it.
And you were terrified of
Yes.
missing
That.
one of those figures. And it
Yes.
just
Yes.
just got me so hard. Like I could not afford to miss anything. So I
Yes.
needed to have 2 of these. I needed to have 3 of these just to make sure I didn't miss it.
If you were a casual collector up to that point, the 90s made completists out of everybody.
Yes.
And you had Toy Biz just pumping
God.
shit out.
Yes.
Like it was crazy the amount of stuff they were making. Hasbro,
This is pre-eBay. eBay doesn't exist yet. There's no secondary market.
And you also then had like, I can't find this. I can't find this. I can't find this. I walk into KB and here they are 3 for $10.
Yeah.
And there's tons. So you just didn't know. You didn't know what was going, where it was going to be, who was going to carry it.
There was no secondary market. If you missed it, it was gone forever.
It was gone.
As far as you knew.
And that was also when collecting became a thing, hip. It became an everyday thing. Well, but I mean,
within at least our communities, it was. I got ridiculed. I got mercilessly like just obliterated by cool people. But
I was not collecting toys in high school. I was collecting comics in high school, which was still not looked greatly on, you know. But everyone knew I collected comics. It wasn't a big deal. But it wasn't something that I would
still like you, even though you collect comics.
I know. But toys, I can't fathom what collecting toys as a teenager in the 80s would have been like. I just can't.
As far as I know, in high school, I was the only person who was collecting any kinds of, who had still like kept all my stuff, who was collecting those things.
Yeah.
Anybody I knew that still had toys, they were all packed away. And so into college, there was a couple more people, but it was still a very small minority of folks that I knew that actually.
It was a while. I can't remember. I don't want to say, I know my buddy, my brother, Daniel Pickett, wasn't the first one, but I remember talking to Daniel where he was like, I've got everything I ever owned going back to like when I was 1 year old. Like,
nice.
Like he has just a lot of toys still.
Those would always kind of piss me off, like because all my stuff was gone or broken or whatever, and then I'd find that friend had everything in perfect condition. I was just like, "Did you even play with these?
You don't care. You don't love these things. If you loved it, you would have torn its legs off."
This is a quick aside. Is as the collecting and the websites and everything kept happening over and over and over, right? I got rid of a ton of stuff. Like, so when my buddy Chris, who collected with me all those years, when he started having kids in like 2002, 2003, I sent him the entire vintage collection and just said, we got it at flea markets and stuff. And it was all loose. I just said, these are for your kids. And then that was it. And so during COVID, we don't talk all the time, but we talk, every few months or something. And I was talking to him like 2001, I think, or 2021. And I had mentioned something I had either found, I got some Stan Solo figures where I didn't have any vintage toys. And I just said, I can't pass these. These are just so good. I have to get a few Stan Solo figures and he said, he goes, well, I know a lot of this stuff, like the vehicles are gone and everything, because his kids were in college at that point. He was like, but I think I got like 5 boxes of the stuff you sent me still in my garage, or you just want me to send them back?
Yes, please.
Oh, that's cool.
All the figures I collected in college. Now, a lot of them were gone. There was like 4 or 5 Power of the Force left.
Yeah.
But Stan Solo fixed the gap.
Sure.
Awesome. So now it's a complete set. But it is crazy that I had never, like 20 something years later, I got the collection back when it was time for me to get it back, where now I appreciate it better, and it's full circle.
Well, let's talk about the ones that were in 96. Let's talk about Wave 2, which technically did start to hit in late 95, but kind of in full featured in 1996. And Dan, got to talk about Boba Fett. What is your I'm curious your perspective on this figure being this Boba Fett,
Sure.
Do you like Boba Fett, Dan? Is that what I'm hearing?
It was off and on. I'm trying to remember when I first found out, because it had to have come either through the internet or because when this figure hit 96, this would have been my second year of college.
Okay.
And it was either through the internet or it had to have been in a magazine, Wizard magazine, something like that, one of the other toy related magazines, because I knew that it was coming out. I knew this and Lando were both going to be hit at the same time. And I've told this story previously. My friends and I were able to go shop directly in Pawtucket at the Hasbro store.
Oh, wow.
So we were going there every day, like until
that is crazy.
Yeah. And it was like, I can't miss this. I can't miss Boba Fett of everything. Like, I didn't have the Boba set yet. I only had the one vintage Boba Fett figure from when I was a kid. I still
so it's only one still. Okay.
I only still had just the one, but it was still like that. Of all the characters, of all the figures, I gotta get Boba Fett. I don't want to wait. I need first out of the gate. I need this thing. And we did. We went to the store, and these aren't my originals, but I do have a carded Lando here, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yep.
And I do have a carded Fett as well. And I only bought one because you couldn't buy multiples at the time. So I just bought the one Boba Fett. And it was still at the point for me where I was sort of taking this stuff at face value, like I wasn't being overly critical. Yeah, his shoulders are a little broader than they should be. He's a little buffer than he should be. His feet are kind of in this, sort of posed position, but I was just like, wow, that's it. They nailed it. It's perfect. Look at all the paint apps. The detail. He's got the Wookiee braids. He's got the removable jetpack. Everything's perfect. His rangefinder is up instead of down. Yes. Like, everything about it was perfect. I was like, oh my God, this is the best Boba Fett action figure that's ever existed.
Well, this is the one I got. I've had it since it first came out. This is one of the few, even though I was keeping them carded, I also love Boba Fett. And like I ripped him out because I thought, again, almost same to you. Although I'll get back to big screen.
I didn't realize I had 3 of them. Actually, I have 4 because somebody at some point, a fan of the show, sent something into one of our photo booth episodes. Yeah. So I have an autographed Jeremy Bullock one somewhere.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I have 3 carded.
So I've got to mention about the Fets.
Yeah, because you're talking about the half moon, half circle. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about it.
I have one of each. I have one of each loose here. If you,
yeah. Let's show. Yeah, show us, Dan. Show and tell. There you go.
So you can see on the hands. This over here. This is a full circle. We got a full circle on his hand, and then over here is half circles. So there's like a hash mark kind of between the two. So it was a big deal. You had to like find. Oh, he's got a whole circle or half circles. It was like the long saber, short saber, short saber, long tray thing we were talking about.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is these were the first Star Wars. Well, they're not the first Star Wars, but for collectors, like at the time, nobody really understood the different factories and everything for vintage. Probably Gus did, but outside of that, like this was the first like mainstream. There's differences in the main line.
Yep.
That you have to figure out. Like unless there was something egregious about like a Toy Biz figure, I don't think anybody was like looking for paint variations.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's what, and then I just remember people like notating it, like, and I remember it like, even they would put little like sticky notes or something on the thing just to let you know, like, oh, this was.
So how many do you have Power of the Force 2? Sorry. Yeah.
Hold on. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3 carded. We'll get to the flight pack version next episode. I think.
Yeah, it's next year. Yeah.
And then there's the 2-pack with IG-88, and then I also have this bootleg version that I don't even know where this came from.
Isn't there like an 8-inch version of that bootleg?
I think so. Yeah.
Floating around.
So I didn't realize I had this many, but I guess this is a Boba Fett 2. I don't know. We're workshopping it.
I like this idea actually. Power of the Force 2 Boba
Please
Fett
don't
2.
send them in. Please do not send them in. My mom already buys me enough thinking that they're the vintage.
Amazing. But what's kind of cool, and this is jumping around a little bit, but my day this weekend at Toylanta, I was just picking up Power of the Force 2 figures because again, I think I was buying them at like $2 a piece this weekend. But in 2 collections I bought, they had 2 Dagobah Lukes, and even in the these I got a long saber and a short saber.
I don't think I realized that the saber variations were running that late.
Right? Same thing. I didn't realize it. Again, I bought a whole box of them.
Yeah.
And I was pulling them out for this episode, and I didn't realize that. Yeah, because I thought it ended with just the first wave figures, but no, Dagobah Luke still had long saber variant.
And,
now,
before we move on from Boba Fett, I just one more thing I want to point out. Like,
you
didn't have the red rocket because obviously this wasn't intended to be like rocket firing or anything, right?
Sure.
So you finally had the correct colors on there, and just the amount of paint apps on this thing compared to the vintage. The vintage figure is just that sort of bluish, grayish base, orange, maroon, black, and green, and that's it. You got the tone of blue on the back as well. And this just has like all the details of all the little silver bits and scratched armor pieces. He's got the, sigil on his shoulder pad there. Like it was just such a breath of fresh air of like, oh my God, this is where toy technology is at right now. And this is what it would have looked like if they made it today, because they made it today.
Yeah.
And they knew, the Kenner designers, and it's funny because at the time, most people didn't realize guys like Mark Boudreau were still there. Like that was my mind was completely blown to again go back to superpowers a little bit. A lot of the guys sculpting Total Justice and Batman figures all the way up through like Mission Masters and the Antivirus and all that, the same guys who sculpted superpowers.
That's wild.
Like all these guys and Star Wars, like some of the sculptors, like Larry Elig and stuff who worked on the original line, worked on Power of the Force 2 all the way up into the 2000s when they started to go digital. So
it's wild.
Yeah, it blows my mind that, you just call these guys.
The DNA is there. The DNA.
Yeah.
So there wasn't like this big, hey, we're bringing in these guys to do these crazy muscular
new blood. Yeah. They did. The people that did the regular also brought in the muscles.
It was, and that's just a strange, fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, is just a weird time. But Kenner at some point said, hey, you know what we are? We're the extreme company. Everything we do from now on is going to be extreme. Like no one's just going to be standing there.
I can ask a question related to that, because we talked about that a little bit last week, because we talked about the buff Luke, all these buff figures, even buff C-3PO. You've had conversations with these sculptors and stuff like that. Was there an influence from like McFarlane or Toy Biz or like
100%? It's a twofold thing. You had Toy Biz was the one who really came into it and said, we don't know how to make toys. So we're just going to go nuts, because what stops you a lot of times is this institutional knowledge of this is how we do things.
Sure.
And Toy Biz literally, like Batman 89 was their first action figure line, and you can see it. Like I could dissect that forever.
Well, and you can see the DNA of superpowers in that line.
Well, yeah, because they didn't know. I don't think they were like a baby doll company before that. Like they did, Big Wheels and stuff, but not Big Wheels. It was Marks, but you know what I mean. But they did like role play kind of stuff with
not action figures.
Not like Barbie dolls, but dolls.
Right.
Somehow they got the license, and they just like flat out recast it. They're not superpowers molds. They're like they took waxes from production figures and sculpted new details on top of them.
Right.
And they're just strange. Like the engineering is weird.
You can see that same DNA cross over when they start doing the Marvel superheroes line.
100%.
It's the Spider-Man with the suction cups and all this.
Absolutely.
It's like an evolution. And personally, I think a lot of that is they're sculpting on top of sculpts. It's kind of what's happening with McFarlane and Superpowers right now. Is it's all new tooling. They're not reusing anything, but whoever's sculpting is just saying, I've already got this wax, and that's going to save me a minute.
Yeah,
so they
sure.
keep doing that. And then they brought in Steve Kiewis, and he just kind of said, you know what? I'm just going to start getting better and going nuts with everyone, and I'm just going to keep taking it further.
Mhm.
And as a total aside, my thing was always the 90s toys were split with toy guys and comic guys.
Mhm.
And toy guys were guys who came out of this thing, who have been working in the toy industry forever, and they're saying this is how it has to be engineered. You see a lot of Mattel stuff. It's like this, we want to take it to the extreme, but there's something kind of holding us back. And comics and everything has to be the same. So even if we do G.I. Joe Extreme, even if we do Street Sharks, they're all going to look the same.
Yeah.
Toy Biz, you can have two figures in the same assortment or even the same scale.
Oh yeah, no.
Like they are wild. And that's because you've got comics guys like Jesse Falcon who are like,
Mhm.
I understand how all this is, but I come from the comics world where Art Adams looks nothing like Ross Andrew.
Right.
And so I'm going to let my sculptors be the sculptors. I'm going to have superstars carry this all the way through instead of a line designer and engineer who's holding them back. And you
Yeah.
see this, then Todd comes along and Todd is like, I've got something in my head that no one's ever seen. And I don't care if you have to resculpt this 15, 20, 30 times, because we would hear that from the Four Horsemen and the guys that first started working with Todd.
Mhm.
Of every other company is like, you're going to sculpt this and we're going to tweak it, but we're mainly tweaking for engineering or mainly tweaking because a licensor said so. And every time is money. You only have so many shots at this. So we got a couple of rounds and then we're gone.
Yeah.
And Todd was very much like, we're not leaving until this is my way. And you're going to redo it until it's my way. And over the years, they would just say, well, now we know, we've learned what Todd wants from something we've never seen Todd do before.
Yeah.
We know how much Todd wants us to push it. We know how far it's going to go. And that was what he did. So I think you did see in Kenner and Hasbro and whoever else was looking at that and going, we don't understand this, but this needs to be.
We need to go back to 96, give Lando Calrissian a bunch of abs.
Yes, that's right.
Under that shirt.
Did you stress Riz in the middle of that for a reason? Lando Calrissian.
Exactly.
Thickest cape probably anyone
I hate this cape
ever produced.
The only man with abs that are so defined they show through his shirt. His baggy shirt, like it's just like he's so ripped.
What I like about
listen, Billy D. Williams he can pull it off. I don't doubt it.
The likenesses were getting better as this went on. 96 was a weird year.
Great head sculpt.
Because they've calmed down the likenesses so that they're getting closer to the actors, and they're not as posed and they're not as muscular, but they're still posed and they're still muscular. It's like this kind of weird hybrid of they're not really sure to stay or go with this thing.
It really drops off after Boba Fett and Lando, though.
Yeah, it does. You could tell.
Yeah.
You could tell.
Maybe Dagobah Luke.
It calms down. It calms down.
Was it like
even
Gunner
the
is one of the first ones who feels like a normal human? Where it
which one?
The Death Star Gunner. I feel like and then Greedo's almost normal for as far as that goes.
Yeah, Greedo, I mean he's definitely kind of slimmed down, but you can tell he's still. I mean, you can tell there's muscles underneath. He's toned underneath the suit.
He's rocking that ass. I mean, come on.
He's got a good butt, but so we're kind of pushing on time here, so we may have time to like go into every single figure, but let's just start calling out some ones we do want to call. I think we talked about Luca Dagobah. What about Han Solo Hoth gear?
Did he have the two different colors in this wave? Am I wrong? Or I know the brown was the big controversy.
Yeah, I don't remember on that.
Oh, what, I
think that this is where the first time, though, I think he came out and he has the brown jacket, and everybody was like, "This is wrong. Like this is totally wrong."
Right. What color is the jacket actually supposed to be in the movie? Is it blue in the movie? Or is it brown in the movie?
More or less where that started in terms of Kenner saying, this is what they told us to make it.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
this is what color the jacket is. And everyone
Yeah.
was like, no.
yeah. Well, I always assumed it was blue because the vintage figure.
The figure's blue.
Exactly. Yes.
I never
100%.
thought it was brown. But looking at the page real quick here on
Yeah.
Rebel Scum, he does have that one posed hand initially that was like you couldn't do anything with it.
Mhm.
And he has that awful L stance.
I hate
that-
this dance.
I hate.
Yes.
And unlike the vintage figure, he had his hood down, which was a sort of change from vintage to 95,
Well,
96.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So it was like, neat, but doesn't quite feel the same, like just that hood became a part of Hoth.
And also, he's never in the movie with that look, right? He never has. He either has the whole thing off.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. I don't think
he
ever
has the hood up
like
in the hat. I don't think you ever see him in just the hat.
Let's talk about cross sell a little bit. Still, look at luxurious cross sell. You got both wave 1, wave 2 in here. Look at how, and we talked about this last week, Jason, but like the full like dissertation.
Man, someone is doing a lot of work.
Right? Like look at how small they made the text.
Yeah. I've written a lot of card backs, and let me tell you, it is one of the least favorite part of the job.
A lot of exposition going on.
Yeah. And
kudos to them.
One thing to talk about this wave is the card switch.
Well, that happened. We're gonna say it for 97. So orange to green is 96 to 97. But any notes you want? Dan, you want to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Luke X-wing is a pretty buff dude as well.
Yes,
Luke X-wing is a buff dude. Didn't he have trouble fitting in the X-wing because it was
his shoulders?
The original mold.
Yeah,
his shoulders.
Exactly.
The recreation of the original mold.
Shoulders a bit wide. Head is friggin' tiny. He looks like a Beetlejuice figure.
That lightsaber looks like it's twice his length.
But it's interesting. That lightsaber's too big. It's interesting because it is Empire. That's Empire X-wing.
Yes.
And that was the first time we had gotten this figure, the Snowspeeder X-wing, which they didn't have a Snowspeeder for a while.
Right.
Yeah, Snowspeeder was this year, but yeah, it was.
Was it this year or was it 97?
96 was Snowspeeder and the fudge, the
speeder bike.
Thank you, speeder bike. But yeah, this I think in the research said originally had the New Hope Luke, but they switched it for the Empire Luke, so that it would fit in with kind of the Empire figures in Wave 2.
I hated that figure so much, the body, that when Biggs came out, I swapped the head onto the Biggs body so that
I have the Biggs right here too. It's so much
regularly proportioned
human
body.
Well,
Head's
and that's
a little bit tiny, but
that's the other thing. We don't get a Luke Star Wars X-wing pilot and forever after that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like these crazy things where you think they just pump them out with new heads, but no.
And it's hard because the vintage Luke X-wing figure really looks like a Fisher Price guy. Like it doesn't look like Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill. It's there's no likeness there. It's not even an attempt.
Can we talk about a figure that I think still holds up to this day, the Yoda? I love this Yoda.
So I'm going to say that might be the last, it's not the last time, but it's one of the last times Kenner Hasbro got Yoda's proportions right. And every time I see this, I want to pull my hair out, because you look at any photos of Yoda from Empire or Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones, he's got a tiny body and really long arms and a giant head, and they keep making this big, like a little kid's body and this tiny head up to the one they just came out with for like the Epic series. And I don't know, I absolutely don't know who is there doing that, because look at the Kenner Yoda, which is like near perfect. This is also the last one they gave the hump to. So if you look in this back, they just get rid of it at a certain point.
Yeah.
And the only time you can see the hump in the movie is when Deep Roy is wearing the costume and it's a long shot of him walking to his hut. But it's there. It's there in photos. Kenner uses reference. They have it here, and then from this point on, Yoda goes awry.
My main complaint with this figure, I love that they included the backpack for
Yep.
Bespin Luke, for Dagobah Luke. That was an accessory thing you had to get, an accessory pack for the vintage line. Love that it was actually included. Awesome, perfect. Kind of should have been a 2-pack. What I hated is that it's impossible to get him in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His feet are so wide that you can't actually press him in very smoothly. You have to really like jam him in there. He's tough to get out.
And this is a really nice sculpt, but the wide feet, here's another strange thing. It almost feels like they looked at this and said, oh, how do we make him power the Force 2? Oh, he needs to have that wide stance.
Yeah.
He needs to really have those
Needs
legs
the power stance.
far
Yes.
apart for him to fit into this line.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. Otherwise, it's a great.
Well, do you think
great
they did that
Yoda.
so that it would stand up? You know, probably.
Well, the original one stands up fine. He's great. You don't.
I'm
need
trying to
all
see if there's any like buff features here for you.
That's it. It's the feet, and those feet are huge too. Those are really big feet for Yoda.
And then TIE Fighter pilot saw
Great figure. The head sculpt is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
the head sculpt is gorgeous on this thing.
That's one of the best early figures they did.
And again, you know, differentiating, you know, just things that you loved at this point was that if you had a vintage TIE Fighter pilot, you couldn't turn the head.
Yes.
Stormtroopers, TIE Fighter pilots, Imperial Guards, you couldn't turn the heads on those things. So for this to have that control box, connected to the hoses, it was just such a revelation. You're like, finally, that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Admittedly, TIE Fighter pilot in the original line is one of the worst sculpts they have.
I loved it as a kid. It's
in terms of fidelity, like that is one.
It's just like a it doesn't do anything. This is great figure, TIE Fighter pilot. And then how about Han Solo and Carbonite? I loved this because I thought it was the Han and Carbonite was so realistic. I love this figure.
Well, the proportions are coming down. He's not as broad shoulders. He's got a much simpler pose than that first Han Solo figure from Wave 1. You got the clip in the back. I don't know why you'd want to clip him to the back. You don't need to. It's nice that you have the block and the figure. The block is awesome. The block is so fantastic. Good. Such a great looking block. I think I've told the story before. One of my biggest regrets as a kid was being in the store and seeing Han and Carbonite, you know, vintage Han and Carbonite on the shelves, on the pegs. But at that point, Star Wars was dead to me, and G.I. Joe and Masters of the Universe were sort of where it was at. And I remember going and, you know, picking out something other than that and then regretting it. Once I was starting to get back into vintage Star Wars, just being like, I could have had it. It was right there. But yeah, that Carbonite block is just absolutely fantastic.
I even when I kind of got out of collecting them, I still had that Han and Carbonite like on my desk. I thought it looks so good.
It looks so good. It's two-tone. You got the sort of gloss finish and the matte finish. You got the sticker control panels on the side. It's so much better than the one that came with the Slave 1 and the vintage line.
Yes.
This is so much better. This was just it was just like
I'll let you go big screen with it. You have it in your hand.
Just so much of it, you know, felt like finally correcting some issues that had sort of been languishing. I got him clipped on the back on this one. I was just ragging on it. It's just such
it came in handy, didn't it?
So it's so good.
Yeah, such a great figure. And then Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. This one was another. I think this was my last orange card figure. Again, the robe way too damn stiff.
That heavy rubber.
But I just remember being so excited that I found this figure. I absolutely just
this was another one that had a variant, a brown vest, black vest.
Yes.
And then I think the loose one I have of this is my theater edition. When they released the special editions to theaters, they released a version of this on a specific card back that had the date of the release on it. And you would go to the theater when you were going to see the movie, and they would give you, you know, one per person, basically. I was working at a movie theater at the time. So just like Jason was talking about with working at Toys R Us, you were kind of like, can you please put one aside? Like, I will quit my job and come back in to watch the movie right now if I have to get one of these figures. You don't understand what this means to me.
A popcorn bucket for their day.
Yeah. And I got one, and it's interesting for two reasons. One, It has the wrong date on it because
Mhm.
the release date got pushed, so it technically
Interesting.
has the wrong
I didn't
date
know
on
that.
it. And then two, the glue just does not hold up on the bubbles, and almost every sample I've ever seen, the bubble has come off from it. So I still have the blister card somewhere in a bin or whatever, but you know,
Mhm.
it's like at this point, there's no difference in the figure, so there's no particular value to the figure.
Sure.
So it's
Yeah.
just a curiosity.
So good. Jason, what was your thoughts on this Luke? Better, worse?
Oh well, I
So
mean, it's exactly what you're saying. With the cape is weird. The lightsaber felt different. Like I don't know because it's a little yellowish, but it felt like it was getting more like translucent. Like there was something
Mhm.
about this saber that just felt neater than some of the
Mhm.
earlier ones to me.
I think the
Um,
green glows
and that
better
might
for
be
Really
it.
some
did.
Was
It
this
really
reason.
the
popped.
first
Yeah.
green one they did?
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
So that
yeah.
was that might be it. Is it just felt like
It really
wow.
popped.
And the face is weird because it's not the same sculpt as the first one, but it still leans much
Still not
more
great.
toward
Yeah.
Matt Damon than Mark Hamill.
And he's still pretty broad-shouldered, and he's
Yes.
still got
Yeah,
that stupid wide stance, and you
like
almost have to like bend him back to get him to stand up.
like
Exactly.
you
Yep.
feel like with some of the other characters, the Alec Guinness, the Harrison Fords, they're leaning toward this likeness, but for some reason, Luke, and you know, we won't talk about Leia, but it's just not even remotely there. Like
Yeah,
there's
no.
something going on that doesn't feel like they've got a handle on where they should be going with these heads.
No, it's like Jay, you talk all the time on your streams about the toy sweats, and I just remember sitting in the dining hall at my college, and you know, everybody else is worried about other stuff, and I'm just like, I gotta get Han and Carbonite and Luke Jedi. I gotta get these figures. Like, I know they're coming out soon. I gotta get over to the stores. Anybody going over to Hasbro today? Like, I really need to go.
I love it. I love
Can't
it.
miss these figures, and it's I still get it, right? You still get that like,
Sure.
Oh yeah,
oh god, I finally have them. I don't have to worry about anything for a while until the
Yes.
next thing ships. And you're like, I gotta
Exactly.
get it again.
yeah.
That's the thing. Like I remember I was a latchkey kid in malls. You know, my parents would drop me off at a mall, or my mom worked in a mall, and I would just go wander around the mall. And I remember I would, if she had to go and open, you know, I get there really early before the mall would open, and I would walk to the KB toy store in that mall, and I would just look through the windows, and because I still remember where they kept their Power of the Force 2 figures, and I would look to be like, oh my god, they put any new ones out this day, any new ones, and this figure was one of them, and I was just like, oh no, that's the Jedi Luke. Oh my god, it's a Jedi Luke.
And
And just being so, again, toy sweats, little young toy sweats. I'm just like, I hope I'm here. I'm the first one.
I'm
If
first.
anybody
You
walks up,
see me here.
yeah,
I'm first.
that's
I
in
call
here.
it.
that's
Dibs on that Jedi Luke.
the worst thing in the 90s, being a collector in the 90s, I felt, and I'm sure it went on for longer, but I just felt like it was a 90s thing of you're standing in front of a store waiting for it to open, and then slowly here comes somebody else and stands next to you. And then here
Exactly.
comes somebody else, and you're not talking to each other, and you're all looking at each other, and the same thought is in your minds of where do I run first?
Yes.
What area
it.
do I stake out? I don't know if
Is
they're
it-
Hot Wheels. I don't
is
know
it-
if they're Ninja Turtles. I don't know what else they're coming for, but I have
You look
one
at their
thing in my
attire, are they
mind.
wearing like a Star Wars shirt or
Yeah, I'm
something,
looking
you
for
know?
this specific thing.
Today's the day I'm gonna kill a man.
Yeah, I was
Or
gonna.
it's the same principle. I was like, all right, if you're outrunning a bear, I just need to be not the last
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the everybody starts off fast walking, and you have to decide: am I going to be the guy who just
Yeah,
doesn't care and
actually,
breaks
yeah,
into a
yeah.
sprint because that's going to break the floodgates, and others will start sprinting behind me. But until that point, until someone goes for it, everybody's just going to kind of do this weird fast walk thing.
Oh
to
yeah.
the back.
All right, let's go on to just wave
Yep.
5 real quick. Death Star Gunner. We talked about Greedo a little bit. Tatooine Stormtrooper, Sand Trooper. It was cool to get a variant Stormtrooper. I will
Or
say, even if it
Sandtrooper.
basically
Loved it
used
so
the
much. I
Yeah.
love that figure so much. Just to finally see that orange shoulder pad,
right.
Even with the rifle.
the backpack, all of it. It was just so cool. I mean, talk about like the first variant Stormtrooper, you know, like
Yes.
And this wasn't this different levels of splatter
Yeah,
Yes.
grimier.
The different variants where they couldn't quite get it to where they wanted to. So it was basically running changes.
Yeah, exactly. Or because I found a green card one this weekend and I picked him up for the show tonight. But yeah, like this one is like really sprayed heavily.
I remember getting this figure and just being so happy, so excited that they finally made this. Like they're listening. They are listening to us. They actually do know what we want, and they're delivering it. It was so excited to get this one.
What's weird is they nailed that TIE pilot helmet. They nailed the gunner helmet.
Helmet still sucks.
And then the Star Trooper helmets, they're just like so obviously way off base.
Yeah. And this is still that same sort of buff stormtrooper body, just kind of reposed.
Yep.
You know, so they're getting better. This was my favorite figure for a while.
Yeah, it was just cool. It was again, it's like that you're getting a variant stormtrooper. I agreed. It was, even though it was flawed, it was fun to get. And then Wave 6 were the last figures. I want to save R5D4 for last. I feel like he's gonna be the most fun to talk about, maybe. Go ahead, Jason. What?
Do you know the whole story behind the R5D4?
Okay, let's save it. Let's close on him then.
Yeah.
Okay, Jawa's 2-pack. Awesome. I love the light piping, and I like that it was a good solution.
Yes. Light piping, fantastic. You're getting some value for your dollar, and they're totally different sculpts.
Yes.
And the ability to quickly army build with those, awesome idea.
I bet the light piping still works.
Yep, you can see it.
It looks good.
Sure. Yep. They're great. They're great figures.
And then Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper disguise, right? We got the Fruit Loops
right here
on. Oh god, this picture of the head sculpt is brutal.
It's good.
That's not the same body as the Fruit Loops Han, though, is it?
No, it is not. It's a different position. It's a different position.
Yeah. Oh, you putting one together, Dan?
Yeah, I got so Han has the sort of side position, almost like that Tatooine Stormtrooper, and Luke has the more straight up pose. And yeah, body wise, they're different figures. Their arms are different. I think it's the same crap helmet though. But
I don't doubt that.
That likeness is just not there.
Mark Hamill's like, what the hell?
It was like, you gotta have this. You gotta. Absolutely. I can't miss this. I missed it the first time around. I can't miss it this time.
Okay, and then did anybody? I remember I got this figure. I still have him right here. My Hammerhead. That I got, but seeing that he wasn't called Hammerhead, it was Moma
Nadon.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, quit. It's Hammerhead.
You call him whatever you want. I'm gonna call him Hammerhead. Yeah.
Exactly. But I love Hammerhead. Was one of my favorite vintage figures. One of the ones that I did have. I just love the design. I think just being an ET kid as well. Hammerhead was an ET. Just I don't know why. I just had a lot of extra for such a minimal character, but. I love all the detail of this figure that we got with him. I thought it was so cool.
Well, and like Greedo, you're like, oh, this is his actual outfit. This is closer to what he was actually wearing as opposed to these jumpsuits that Kenner invented.
Absolutely. And the sculpting is just amazing on this. And this is completely could not go in the vintage collection, but you know what I mean. There's nothing buff. There's nothing overly posed about him.
Yep.
Like he just looks like what you want out of a great Star Wars line.
Agreed.
And that blaster that we have found scales perfectly with 6-inch figures.
Yes. So good. All right, and then we also got a Tusken Raider. Who again a really solid Tusken Raider. He looks good.
Nice heads. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was a huge Tusken Raider fan. Going way back, and I gotta admit I was disappointed in this guy because he has a tiny little head, and it just felt stiff. Like it did not feel like
that robe was so limiting. That like clamshell robe that he's got on there, just all the sculpt and paint details. It really was just for me. It was like I gotta get it because I'm getting all the figures, but this is not a great figure.
No, I think the Bantha one was the one that they got right.
Yes.
Like that was where they, except for the weird half skirt, like half cloth, half whatever, but still much better sculpt.
I think this one is important to me, and I'll probably talk more about it next week, or whenever that episode drops, the 97 episode. I think this was my first green card, and it was the first time seeing a green card, and I was like, wait, what? the game has changed.
I gotta go back and buy everybody again.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that is the Tusken Raider. All right, let's talk about R5D4. Jason, you say you have a story here. I remember getting this again at KB Toy. I've always liked R5D4. I like the vintage figure too. But then once I saw this, I was just like, this is the most power of the Force droid R2 R5 unit. But Jason, what's the story behind this guy?
Okay, do you guys know the story behind this?
I don't. So.
Okay, so before these waves came out is when you started getting the advanced lists hitting again, like Adam Paulus's newsletter. George Emmons was talking about it. And what got out, I don't think it ever got out to Tomarts or whatever, but one of the upcoming lists had Attack R2D2 and Attack C3PO. And people lost their minds because everybody was like, and it was, there was descriptions. Someone said, these are going to have, R2 is going to unfold weaponry and C3PO is going to have some guns. And it was like, not a joke. I'm sure if you did a search for it right now, you find something on it. Because people lost their minds and were complaining to Hasbro, and they were just like, this is not Star Wars, but this is not Star Wars. Give my characters guns.
There's no pew-pews in Star Wars.
People were really upset, like really mad. And the word is they were in production, and Lucasfilm came back and said, not going to happen. Like, this is not going to do it. But R5D4 was part of that assortment, and he was already in production. And that's why he totally doesn't even come apart. Like, he shoots a rocket.
Yeah, so I don't have my missile in here. He's, I think, in my parts bin, but he opens up.
But this is what apparently that wave was going to be. And I don't know who else, if it was just those or the Death Star droid or something, but they were all going to be attack mechanisms as part of this kind of branch out thing they were doing. And R5 is the only one that made it. But that's also why he is completely unlike any of the others. Like, he's just, what the F?
Yeah. R2D2, we talked about it last week, is a really good figure. Like, it's really good
upgrade,
for the era. Chrome top, everything.
First thing I did with that R5D4 was take an X-Acto knife and cut those guns off.
Of course. A lot of people did. Yeah. But yeah, glue it shut. But that's it. It is a crazy footnote of what Kenner was trying to do with their extreme,
I always like the inside of it, kind of like he had his two eye hole or units there from the
I really didn't know what to make of it at the time. At the time, I thought it was some weird kind of like them trying to interpret his he's got a bad motivator, that sort of moment. Now you can do like maintenance on him or something, and maybe this is sort of playing off of the idea that the thing that pops out of his head now it's a missile. And I was like, I don't know, it's R5D4. What do you want from this guy? Like, just trying to polish him up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta give him a little juice, something,
it's either that or throw a Jawa in the pack with him.
Oh my god. But no, I think that figure is pretty cool. Let's talk about the deluxe guys real quick. You talked about the desert sports skiff. I think these were fun sets, but again, this Luke the head sculpts get worse and worse and worse. This Luke just looks bad. I'm so sorry to whoever sculpted this. Because it's not great. It's not great.
And this is basically the first one kind of repositioned, right? Like, they just did some.
Yeah, they didn't have the weird stance thing with him.
Right.
But Dan, were you kind of like, or did you like the deluxe figures? Where are you at with these?
I didn't love them. I appreciated what they were trying to do, but it just wasn't for me. I just wanted actual Star Wars stuff. I never got into the books or the comics, anything that was extended universe or whatever we're calling it then and now. It just was not interested. I only wanted stuff that was in the movies. I didn't want to try to build the lore outside of that. So this was an easy pass for me. That said, the Stormtrooper one, I did like the look of that thing. And I liked the sort of incorporation of the X-Wing style blaster on the tip of one of those cannons that he's got.
Yep. Well, I also thought they called it the crowd control.
Yeah.
Stormtrooper was kind of dark as an action feature, but
Yeah.
but no, yeah, that one pretty solid. I didn't like that the Luke had, I'm sorry, not the Luke, the Han Solo had like the harness gear as part of his. Here's the crowd control stormtrooper. And
I gotta say, I appreciated the Han that they actually, like, he's a true variant. It's not just like repackaging or reposing the existing thing. Like, they actually gave you more or less a new figure.
Yeah,
not a great new figure, but a new figure that if you just wanted to take that thing off his back, which again, this is Kenner engineers desperately trying to put action features into this line. And that's where the attack R2D2 and C3PO came out of, is Kenner was an engineering
action, man.
Company, you know, superpowers, Ghostbusters, all of that.
And this is true to the spirit of the vintage line. You had the pack, the
mini rigs.
Yeah, I was calling them pack rats. I had G.I. Joe on the brain. You had the mini rigs. That was all. So it was all technically in bounds. It was all fair game as far as I was concerned. But for me, these were the moment where I had to say, am I a completist on this line?
Yes.
Or am I not a completist on this line?
I didn't pick them up.
I did because because there were some minor variations in the figures.
There were.
And I was paranoid that I was going to miss the one, that was going to be so worth it years later. Oh yeah, nobody bought that one because everybody hated it. Now it's worth $8,000 a piece. I had to get them.
And it's interesting. We won't go into detail about it, but it's interesting that they immediately course corrected. And knowing the lag on toys, like the second assortment becomes much more, we're talking about the movies, you know, and what's part of the movies in these deluxe figures. Is it felt like this was a decision made before these even hit shelves. Like in development, Lucasfilm, where internally they said, hey, we're already far down on this, but let's calm this down. Like, we're calming everything down from there. Yeah. Well, except for him. He feels like, to the point of, I was making my own list and I put him in 96 because he felt like he's so much.
He should have been in 96.
He should have. Like, so I asked Allison this, our researchers. He said, I thought 96 as well, but he was only released on green cards.
He was only on green cards.
That was only in 97. There's no evidence he was 96.
But boy, he feels like he part of that first assortment. Nothing like the other ones that came out later.
Yeah.
So much fun.
So ridiculous.
And I was just talking
about not having the red rocket, you know, and it's like, that's bigger. It's so huge.
Technically, the first rocket firing backpack. And again, people on Usenet lost their shit because they were like, what are you thinking, Kenner? Like, this is not what we're asking for. For a rocket firing backpack.
These are still kids then. They're still kids.
These are for kids.
All right, and then let's quickly go through the couple of vehicles that we had. Allison Troy put together some images and stuff like that. We had the Snow Speeder was a re-release, but added some details, as well as the speeder bike. That was it for vehicles, but they still carried over the stuff from 95. So the Millennium Falcon, X-Wing, Land Speeder, TIE Fighter. She did note the AT-ST kind of was stopped production and kind of disappeared in 96, but the rest of these were pretty much there the whole time.
We need to point.
Go ahead, Dan.
I was gonna say we have to point out that was the first Biker Scout released as part of Power of the Force 2.
Yeah,
and woof.
He couldn't stand up. You wanted him on that bike.
He had knees. That was cool, but no elbows. So he was just locked in that position. And tiny little head, little Beetlejuice figure. Yeah. So he looked,
and his head did this. His head.
He looked fine on the speeder bike. For 1996. But other than that, and I was excited to actually have another, because I think I had one vintage one, but this one again, the paint apps and everything. It was just so great to have an update.
I will say the vintage one was my favorite. Like, right when I stopped collecting, I kept that Scout Biker for a long time.
Oh yeah, it's a great one.
I feel like that was a fun design. This is like Deepwood's Constipation Scout Biker. That's what he's got going on.
I appreciate that it still has the spring-loaded little handlebar thing there. You want to use it with your vintage figures, you can.
Yeah.
I'll say this about the vehicles. It's odd because you can probably pick up a full carded set, red cards, green cards for almost nothing.
Yes.
Right? Vehicles, a lot of these rival the originals for some reason.
They hold their
for
value.
a long time, they were really easy to find for not much money. But if you were to pick up some of these today, they are not cheap.
I was at Toylanta this weekend. Somebody had a Millennium Falcon, and it was $125. Open in box, which again, a vintage one is what, like about that, $150 maybe, complete.
I would imagine they made a ton more of the vintage.
Oh, absolutely. All right, so we had a couple little play sets: the Detention Block Rescue and the Death Star Escape. I mean, vaguely play sets, at least by today's standards. These are great play sets, but
90s weren't good for play sets the 80s. But I'll say this: when I was looking back at the vintage line, the original line, it was so much more playset driven than you would think about. Like, you know what I mean? Like every movie had so many different scales of playsets and vehicles. Like this was a huge thing. And I feel like that's the one thing about Power of the Force 2 that until like the 2000s, when we started getting stuff like the carbonite chamber investment and some of these crazier stuff, and then of course
Battle of Geonosis and all that.
That's it. When the prequels came, I feel like they brought back some of these bigger things, and that led to like the vintage collection getting some stuff. But this 90s stuff, like they kind of tested the water with these tiny. I remember when these came out, I didn't pick these up either because I was like, this is strange.
Yeah.
I didn't even do these. I was like,
I wouldn't even call them play sets. They're more just like little diorama kind of things.
Yeah, that's what they are. They're like little mini, and they don't like that first one just calls for like a cardboard piece or something behind it. Like they don't even bother to put a scene back there.
What are they going to put 2 pieces of cardboard in there? It's already got one on the bottom. What do you want? Like they literally could have made it part of the box, and you just cut part of the box out.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just strange, but and again, I feel like in the next wave, they kind of feel like, oh, let's give it a little something more oomph, a piece from a scene.
And then real quick, I was not, or either of you into this? Is also the first 12-inch figures. Chewie's fun,
big time. Again, I was not gonna make the same mistakes. I wasn't old enough.
Even for 12-inch, you were all in.
I was all in, 100% in. This first wave of figures, you look at it now, even back then, they suck. The heads are too small. The likenesses are awful good. I mean, this Chewbacca looks like a puppet. Like this looks like a burger. It's like a Burger King prize. Really Burger King prize or something you would get. Put it on Luke. Like his hair is like white pastel. Like I don't even know what's going on there. Like it's terrible. But I was not gonna make the same mistakes. I was gonna get every single figure. I had all of them. I had them through the prequels. I had every single one of them.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I recently actually just went back and rebought. It's not from this wave. They made a regular Boba Fett, which just like all of these, the head's too small. It's weird. I mean, the cloth goods are good. It's just the arms are too short.
That's the only one I had was the Boba Fett.
So they did the Boba Fett. His head's too small. It came in a box like this. But later they did the Power Effects or whatever it was called, electronic effects. I can't remember what it was called. But he was in a deluxe packaging, new sculpt, bigger head, was more proportionate. All the cloth was good, and he's got the chip in him. And I had to go back and get that one because it's prequels. So it has the original Boba Fett voice.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't have Tamir Morrison. It has I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now.
That's it.
Or no, the original head voice. So not Tamir Morrison, the original voice. It has that on it, and so I was like, I have to have that original voice chip in there. But yeah, I had every single one of these figures.
Nice, awesome. I still have the C3PO case. I love it. Actually, I put batteries in because he isn't talking anymore. It's a carryover. It's a re-release of the vintage one. And so the big Power of the Force figures barely fit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a terrible case for the figure.
Little bit of a downgrade because the vintage was chromed.
Exactly. Yeah, this is just kind of cast and
they redid Vader the first round, right? Am I wrong about that?
no,
they
they
just
didn't
redid
redo Vader till in the 2000s, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, no, the other one they released was the Falcon with Wedge.
Yes,
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And then the last big thing, I got this for Christmas. Now, lightsaber, I just was obsessed with lightsabers. This was like the first official lightsaber. You talked about, Jason, in the beginning, how you got that knockoff one, but like I was so excited when they had this lightsaber, just because it felt like so accurate. It wasn't some cheap flashlight with some tube on it. It was like, this is like the real deal.
The one we got, and I don't know if you remember this, Dan, like I think the only one that ever came out was for the for Empire, and it was this horrible giant thing.
Yes.
That had
Black
like a
plastic.
little bit of a gyroscope or something in there. So you really had to move it to make a horrible tiny noise.
So yeah, there was definitely I want to say they made them for Jedi, because I want to say I had a green one not too long ago, but it was more it had that like open end kind of tube thing. So when you swung it made that kind of whistling sound.
That's it. But they didn't make the one with the gyroscope. That's
and they were always beat to shite because people just clang them together.
Exactly.
Which I think I still have my tube from it. But I think you're right. I think it was Jedi because the Empire one was an inflatable.
Yes.
A flashlight with an inflatable blade that was horrible.
Yep. I'm pretty sure I have a picture of myself with one of those somewhere. That one, Jay, every time I would, you take that thing out of the box and you do that thing where Vader, in Jedi, where he's holding Luke's, you've constructed yourself a new lightsaber, and you're like looking at it and you're like, very nice.
And now it's like by modern standard, like I have the latest Hasbro. One that's incredible. Like I would have killed.
Oh God, yes.
Because Obi-Wan saber is my favorite, and this was kind of the closest to it, that we could get. And but I swear at the time I was like, God, it's like straight out of the movie.
Are we flexing lightsabers right now? Because I'll go grab
sure, yeah, why not? Lightsaber time. Go ahead. But yeah, I Jason, did you get this, or did you have the no?
No, and I'm
too old for it by that
thinking
point.
about it. I left Toys R Us in '95, so '96 I was still going back to the one I used to work at. No, and I knew everyone there, and we would literally just pick these. Like kids would take these out of the package in the aisles, and we would just fight with them. And then,
wait, is that your actual Graflex?
Oh, nice.
I'm still jealous of that pickup. So jealous.
Yeah. This is
every time I go to a flea market or some old dusty thrift, I just like that is the dream to stumble upon.
It came true. I've told the story before. I was at a flea market and I had dreams about it. I had dreams about how I knew exactly how it was going to go. Some old guy was going to have his camera collection of all his photography equipment. He was going to be selling it. He wasn't going to know what it was, and nobody else in Concord, New Hampshire was going to be looking for this in a pile of photography equipment. Walked in, took a left, bam, there it is, right on the table. On a bin. And I pulled the bin out and I was like, I'm like shaking. I'm like, don't be too excited. Don't be too excited. Yeah. And I was like, hey, we went for this old thing. And he said, this is 6 years ago. $50 is what he said. He said $50. And I love to haggle.
What'd you go come back with?
I said, would you take 40?
Okay.
And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I gotta go. Running.
Yes.
That is insane.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. It had the flash part on it. Obviously, I took that off.
Yeah.
It's
were
missing.
You like right there in front of him, like that goes in the trash.
Yeah. If you scroll back far enough on my Instagram, you'll see I posted a picture of it from the floor. So whatever the timestamp is on that image, like I had just bought it 5 minutes before. I haven't kitted it out to make it into a lightsaber because I was like, I don't want to,
I think just keep it like that.
Yeah, everybody knows what this is.
Well,
it's just gorgeous.
And that's probably a lot rarer because everybody has modified the damn thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And they make enough replicas now. Like that again, the Hasbro ones of those look great. They look, but that's so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, on that note, I think it's a great place to wrap it up. 1996, Jason, My friend, you are a treasure trove of
guess
history and
I can talk,
information,
that's for
and
sure.
but I think it's important as we get older and these things expand, is to like understand the history and the context and everything behind it. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and talk about these toys.
Let me jump in real quick on a part
Please.
note. This is my only modern Star Wars toy that I still have.
The Ronto?
Wow.
The Ronto, for some reason, it escaped, but I gave everything away in 2012 to like a children's charity.
Oh, wow.
I
That's nice.
swept it out because at that point I just said, I can't keep going down this road with you, Hasbro.
I can't live like this anymore.
Where I'm,
Well, I will tell you, Jason, you can still find them for about $2 a piece.
Very cheap. They are very affordable.
I have
lie them up, rip them open, get rid of them. Doesn't matter.
I just rebought a bunch of Superman the Animated Series carded figures for no good reason. So I wrestle with every time I see at Dallas Vintage Toys for $5 a lot of Power of the Force Landos. Do I need one?
Yeah,
maybe
no.
Might as well.
They scratch that itch, man.
Right? Everyone needs some really, really strong abs in their collection.
That's a 30-year-old figure. I mean, let's get real about
I was going to make that point. Those figures are much older now than the vintage line was when those figures came out.
It is wild. 30 years.
Stupid time.
Goes by quickly. Jason, I know you got a Kickstarter going on right now, or maybe it might be ended by the time. I don't know, but where can people find that?
Okay, so yes, it's probably still going. Kickstarter, go look up Longbox Heroes on Kickstarter. It's Wave 2. It's the last hurrah. If you want these figures, you should support it, because this is going to be it if we don't have enough support. So,
well, we'll put a link in the description for this episode.
Awesome.
But yeah, really cool stuff. Kind of continuing that style of Secret Wars, of superpowers.
There we go.
And, but yeah, so 22 days to go from here. Probably be like a couple weeks to go by the time this episode airs.
We just revealed Tarzan at Toylanta.
Yeah.
So he's part of the mix. We have some others we haven't revealed, the stretch goals that are super cool. So yeah, jump
Get
in.
to it, folks.
Yeah.
Get to it. Awesome. But yeah, thank you so much. Extra supersized episode. And we'll see you all next week. We split 96 into 2. So it was just 96 Prime. And then Ryan Dole will be joining us to talk about Shadows of the Empire. And Dan is talking about how he hates extended universe. So a really interesting discussion.
Plenty of toys to talk about, though.
Yes, indeed. But that'll do it. We'll see you all next time. Hasta luego and goodbye.
Later.